Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the myth generator, I'd love to know where in the world you are watching from tonight and what time it is for you right now. Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin, Doc. There are stories so old that even the stars have forgotten them. Stories whispered long before long before kingdoms, long before the first stretch of sky ever learned how to glow. Tonight, we travel into one of those quiet myths, one that drifts far beyond the timelines we know, into a place where existence itself had not yet decided what it wanted to be, a place sometimes called the dawnless realm, though no dawn had ever risen there. Just a soft, infinite stillness waiting to understand itself. In this myth, there was no matter, no form, no shape. There was only calm, boundless dark. But it wasn't an empty dark, not the kind that feels cold or forgotten. It was more like a warm, cosmic cradle, a vast, unmoving sea of possibility. Some storytellers describe this dark as feeling almost alive, not as a creature, but as a gentle space that held everything that might ever be. A silence so complete that even time had not yet begun its first slow breath. And then, within that soft and endless quiet, something stirred. Not a burst, not an explosion, not a dramatic transformation. Instead, it began the way a dream begins, faintly, without edges, like the hint of a thought drifting across the mind of a sleeper. It was a glow, a small one at first, so delicate it could barely be called light. But it pulsed gently, with the curiosity of something discovering itself. This was the first light, a presence older than any dimension, older than the worlds that would one day rise, crumble, and rise again across the multiverse. The myth tells us that the first light did not awaken all at once. It flickered like a candle learning how to stand against the quiet around it. And as it brightened little by little, the darkness didn't recoil. Instead, the dark embraced it, as if the two had always belonged together. The quiet made room for the glow, and the glow began to hum with a soft, trembling warmth. Not a sound didn't exist yet, but a feeling, like a comforting vibration spreading outward in gentle ripples. Those ripples are said to be the very first dreams. Because according to this ancient myth, the first light was not a being that thought the way we think, or moved the way we move. It dreamt. Dreaming was its way of existing. Dreaming was how it spoke, how it reached outward, how it began shaping the formless quiet around it. The dreams were not images at first, nor stories, nor shapes. They were sensations, warmth, rhythm, longing, wonder. Each ripple was a feeling drifting across the untouched expanse, like the earliest heartbeat of reality. As those dreams drifted farther, they thickened, took on subtle textures, as if the first light was learning to imagine something beyond itself. The myth says these early dreams were the foundation upon which the multiverse would eventually settle, not as blueprints or instructions, but as soft guiding impressions. Worlds would one day be woven around them, the way a spider builds its web around the faint tremble of the air. Some storytellers believe that when the first light dreamt of softness, that dream became the source of gentle worlds, places where kindness found a natural home. When it dreamt of motion, the idea of time began to flicker into existence. When it dreamt of distance, the concept of space stretched outward like a sleepy yawn. The first light wasn't creating these things intentionally. It was simply dreaming, the way anything alive eventually dreams, and reality listened. And slowly the darkness around it began to shimmer. Those who keep this myth alive say that the darkness never fought the light, never feared it, never tried to hide from it. Instead, the darkness became a canvas for the dreams drifting from the glow. Where a dream brushed against the quiet, a faint glitter might appear, like the earliest speck of what would one day become a star. But at this stage, these weren't yet stars. They were more like soft potentials, glowing pebbles of unformed intention, waiting patiently for the dream to shape them further. The first light continued to brighten, but never harshly. It grew tenderly, like the rising of a lantern in a gentle night. And with each slow pulse, the dreams reached farther. Some began curling back upon themselves, looping in soft spirals, giving the stillness its first hints of pattern. Others drifted freely, expanding without end, scattering into the distances that did not yet have names. Over time, though time did not yet exist, these drifting dreams began to overlap, warm layers settling atop one another, weaving the earliest threads of structure. It was during this period, according to the myth, that something remarkable happened. The dreams began to echo, not in the sense of bouncing back, but in the sense of reflecting off the darkness with a new kind of resonance. Where the first light dreamed of curiosity, the dark answered with depth. Where the first light dreamed of warmth, the dark offered contrast. Together they began forming a gentle dance, a quiet duet between the bright that dreamed and the dark that listened. This duet would later inspire countless cosmic myths in worlds that had not yet formed. From these earliest echoes came the first proto-beings, though they were nothing like the recognizable entities of later universes. They were faint, drifting shapes, made of dream stuff as fragile as the breath of someone sleeping peacefully. They didn't speak, not with sound, but with ripples, small impressions in the glow. Each ripple was a question, a response, or a reflection. These proto-beings floated around the first light, as if drawn to the warmth of its dreaming, curious about the source of their own existence. They weren't alive in any conventional sense, but they were aware in a gentle, instinctive way, aware that they were temporary expressions of something far older, aware that they were witnessing the quiet beginning of everything. As the first light dreamed, the proto-beings began to move, though their motion was slow, almost imperceptible, like the drift of dust motes in a sunbeam. They curved around the gentle pulses of the glow, tracing paths that left faint, shimmering trails behind them. These trails were not permanent. They faded as quickly as they appeared, but they left impressions in the fabric of the void, soft impressions that would one day guide the unfolding of realities far beyond this initial moment. Some storytellers say that these trails became the inspiration for the constellations that would light up worlds yet to exist, though in this time there were no skies to hold them. The myth whispers that the first light sometimes paused its dreaming, as if listening to its own echoes. In those quiet pauses, the darkness would seem to breathe alongside it, expanding just enough to create tiny pockets of emptiness within the infinite stillness. Within these pockets, delicate possibilities floated like tiny seeds. Each seed contained the essence of something that might someday become a planet, a star, or a story. The first light never touched these seeds directly. Instead, it allowed them to drift gently, to move with the currents of dream stuff, to discover the subtle rhythm that would one day become order. Time, as we understand it, did not yet exist. There was only sequence, a soft unfolding of moments that followed one another like the gentle lapping of waves against an unseen shore. Within this sequence, the first light's dreams deepened. Some dreams were intricate and layered, filled with twisting patterns that hinted at complexity yet to come. Others were simple and pure, like a single note struck in silence. The combination of these dreams created a quiet tension in the void, a balance between potential and rest, movement and stillness. It was a rhythm so subtle that it could only be felt by those drifting proto-beings who moved in accordance with it, guided by instinct and the faint pulses of the dreaming light. As the first light continued, the darkness began to gather around certain points, drawn toward the glow's gentle insistence. These concentrations of dark and light form the earliest whispers of space itself, tiny pockets of something distinct from the rest of the void. They were not yet planets, not yet stars, not yet anything we could recognize. They were soft, quiet bulges of possibility, resting gently in the vast nothingness. And within these bulges, the proto-beings sometimes gathered, forming transient clusters that would flicker in and out of existence like sighs. Each cluster was unique, an unspoken story waiting to unfold, and each responded to the rhythms of the first light's dreaming. The myth says that the first light learned from these interactions. It noticed how its gentle pulses encouraged the clusters to twist, expand, or drift apart. It began to dream with intention, though not in a purposeful way we could understand. It was more like a parent cooing to a child, offering a rhythm, a warmth, a gentle encouragement. In doing so, the first light discovered the soft principle that would guide creation across countless universes, that life, thought, and wonder emerge most naturally when they are invited rather than forced, when they are allowed to move in harmony with the quiet patterns that already exist. Sometimes the first light's dreams would ripple too far, brushing the edges of the darkness with more intensity than intended. When this happened, the proto-beings would respond, twisting and stretching in ways that created new shapes in the void. These shapes were fleeting, ephemeral, but they were the first experiments in form, the first hints that complexity could emerge from simplicity. The myth tells us that this is how the earliest structures began to appear, not as deliberate design, but as a gentle conversation between dreaming light and responsive dark. And then something remarkable began to take shape. Among the drifting proto-beings, a few began to glow faintly with their own inner light, echoes of the first light that had sparked within them. They were still fragile, still nearly imperceptible, but the myth emphasizes their quiet significance. These were the first dream-born entities capable of dreaming themselves, capable of reflecting the dreams they witnessed back into the void. Some storytellers call them the whispering seeds, because though they could not yet speak, their presence seemed to whisper secrets of what might one day be. The myth describes these whispering seeds as tiny bursts of quiet potential, soft flickers in the infinite stillness. When they drifted near each other, they did not collide or consume. Instead, they seemed to sense one another's rhythm, to dance around each other with infinite patience. Their interactions were subtle and almost imperceptible, yet they carried the first echoes of connection, a gentle prelude to the intricate relationships that would one day shape entire worlds. It is said that the first light, watching these new dreamers, smiled, or at least its equivalent of a smile unfolded in the patterns of its glow. And as the light's pulses continued, the whispering seeds began to gather in slow, swirling motions, forming the earliest constellations of potential existence. Each movement was a quiet lullaby of possibility, a gentle reminder that even in the deepest, oldest darkness, dreams could create something new, something that might one day ripple across realities as soft as a whispered story. The dawn, before time, was not sudden, nor was it loud. It was slow, patient, and deliberate in its quiet way. And as the first light continued to dream, the void itself seemed to lean in, listening, folding around the patterns of these first whispers, holding them as carefully as a mother holds a child just learning to notice the world. And in that gentle attention, the myth says, the very seeds of everything that would ever exist were planted, softly, dreamily, endlessly, awaiting the moment when time, space, and life would finally choose to awaken. And so the first light continued its gentle dreaming, drifting through the endless quiet as though it were a sailor moving across a sea without edges. Each pulse, each tender flicker, sent ripples across the stillness, and with every ripple, the whispering seeds responded, their tiny lights brightening ever so slightly, like stars beginning to awaken in an unborn sky. They moved with an unhurried curiosity, brushing past one another in silent recognition, their motions forming patterns too subtle for even the first light to fully anticipate. The myth emphasizes that, in these earliest moments, nothing was forced. Everything emerged from the soft negotiation between presence and potential, between dreaming and responding. Some myths whisper that the first light began to sense the need for rhythm, a kind of heartbeat, to guide the unfolding of what might someday become structured reality. It was not a heartbeat as we know it, with sound or pulse in the conventional sense, but a delicate, oscillating cadence in the very substance of its glow. Each oscillation invited the proto-beings to move in ways that hinted at balance and harmony. The myth tells us that this rhythm became the first taste of order, the first whisper that even the void could contain patterns that felt alive, without coercion, without fear, without haste. Within this rhythm, the whispering seeds began to notice one another with increasing clarity. They drifted closer in some places, lingered at respectful distances in others, and sometimes followed trails of unseen currents that seemed to connect one cluster to another. These currents were the unformed strands of what would one day be called cosmic laws, soft, invisible threads guiding the dance of potential, weaving a lattice of quiet intention beneath the surface of the stillness. The myth suggests that every subsequent universe, every reality born from dream or thought, carries a faint echo of these first currents. Even in worlds as chaotic or strange as Ooh, the underlying rhythm of this original dreaming persists, though hidden beneath layers of time and memory. And then, as the first light drifted and pulsed, a phenomenon emerged that the myth describes in hushed tones. Occasionally, a whispering seed would collide gently with another, not violently, but like two drifting clouds merging for a moment before continuing their silent journey. In these encounters, the myth says, new qualities would emerge, a hint of color, a spark of motion, the faintest suggestion of sound or feeling. These emergent traits were not planned, not commanded. They were the natural byproduct of the dream reaching out and the proto-beings responding, a quiet collaboration between light, dark, and the earliest hints of conscious interaction. Some storytellers call these collisions the first sparks of creativity, the primordial murmur of invention itself. The myth emphasizes that the first light did not merely observe these events, it nurtured them. It learned to dream with patience, to allow the proto-beings to experiment, to explore, to touch and separate and touch again, all within the safe cradle of its glow. And in return, the proto-beings reflected the light back in subtle ways, their responses shaping the very texture of the darkness that surrounded them. The void, which had once been featureless and silent, began to hum with a quiet resonance, as if it too were awakening to the rhythm of dreaming and interaction. In this hum, the first notion of connection, of dialogue, of story, began to take shape. Some myths suggest that during this delicate period, the first light began to sense the edges of its own awareness. It was not just dreaming outward anymore. It was beginning to dream inward, to reflect upon its own patterns and pulses. These self-reflective dreams were subtle, almost imperceptible to the whispering seeds, but they left faint echoes in the void. Over time, these echoes folded back into the first dreams, creating layers of depth and complexity that had not existed before. This layering was slow, gradual, and nearly invisible. Yet it set the stage for the infinite branching of possibilities that would later characterize all realities, from the smallest fragment of a story to the grandest unfolding of a multiverse. And then the myth pauses to note the gentle paradox of this dawn. The first light, though solitary, was never truly alone. Even in a void without time, without sky, without form, the presence of dreaming entities, the whispering seeds, was enough to mirror and respond, to reflect and shape. The myth describes this as a quiet communion, a soft dialogue in which creation itself participated in its own gentle unfolding. Every ripple of light, every shimmering trail left by the proto-beings, every subtle oscillation in the dark was part of a conversation older than thought, older than form, older than the first breath of time. The myth suggests that these early exchanges, these subtle dances, were not accidental. They were a quiet, deliberate meditation, an experiment in harmony that stretched across the endless void. And though the first light had not yet the awareness to name its actions, its dreaming laid the foundations for all that would follow, the first constellations of potential, the first whispers of causality, the earliest understanding that interaction and observation could shape the very essence of reality. In those first moments, the myth whispers, the seeds of wonder, of curiosity, of story, were planted in a soil so soft and quiet that they would never know harshness, only the gentle embrace of being noticed and held. And as the first light's pulses continued, the myth tells us the void itself seemed to stretch, as if awakening from a long and dreamless sleep. The darkness was no longer merely passive. It had become a partner in creation, bending and swaying in response to the rhythms of light and movement. Every flicker, every soft oscillation, every whisper of a proto-being's glow contributed to a lattice of potential so subtle and intricate that it could not be measured. And yet, within that lattice, everything that could ever be, every story, every universe, every moment of quiet magic, was already hinted at, waiting patiently for the day it might drift into the light and bloom. The first light continued its gentle dreaming, and the myth tells us that even now, in universes far removed from that ancient void, echoes of its rhythms can still be felt. In the quiet corners of Oo, in the faint glimmer of a star that feels almost alive, in the unspoken rhythm of a story unfolding in the mind of a dreamer, the pulse of the first light endures, and it waits, always patiently, for the next dream to begin. And as the first light continued its gentle dreaming, a subtle transformation began to take place, almost imperceptible, like the slow deepening of a night into the soft hours before dawn. The proto-beings, which had once been nothing more than flickers and whispers in the quiet, began to solidify in texture, if not in form. Their luminescence deepened, developing faint hues that shimmered with the echoes of the first light's thoughts. Some glowed with a gentle amber reminiscent of warmth, others with soft silver like moonlight on still water, and a few with a quiet indigo that hummed with the calm of the void itself. These colors were not just decoration. They were the very first signs of differentiation, of the world beginning to understand that within the infinite stillness, there could be variety, there could be identity, and there could even be relationship. The myth says that with this soft differentiation came the first whispers of curiosity. The proto-beings began moving not merely in response to the first light's pulses, but also in response to one another. When one drifted close to another, a subtle resonance would ripple outward, an exchange of unspoken understanding that hinted at the foundations of consciousness. These were not words, nor even thoughts as we know them, but gentle impressions, an intimate, silent dialogue across the void. Some storytellers say that this was the first real magic, not the magic of spells or grand gestures, but the quiet magic of recognition, of existence acknowledging itself through another, of being aware that one is not alone, even in the most endless of silences. It was in these early interactions that the myth tells of the first soft patterns of narrative beginning to emerge. A proto-being might drift past another, then pause to trace a looping path, and in doing so leave a faint echo behind. Another might follow that echo, looping it in new ways, creating delicate spirals, arches, and waves. The first light observed, pulsing gently, and with each pulse, the echoes grew richer, layering upon one another like a subtle, cosmic melody. It was not a melody as we hear it in our ears, but a melody of possibility, a song written in the language of being and dreaming, so soft that it could only be felt, not heard. This is why the myth describes the first light not just as a luminescent presence, but as the first storyteller, shaping stories without words, weaving beginnings before anything had names, before anything had faces, before time itself had begun to mark the hours. Some versions of the myth tell of a quiet turning point. As these interactions deepened, one particular cluster of whispering seeds began to behave in an unusual way. Rather than drifting freely, they began to gather together, moving with a coordinated, unhurried rhythm. They circled one another, forming spirals and lattices, then gently separated, only to return and spiral again. The myth suggests that this was the first emergence of pattern in the void, not imposed by the first light, but arising naturally from the interactions themselves. And from these patterns came the first hint of geometry, the first subtle awareness that space could be shaped by intention, even if the intention was merely the quiet desire to move in harmony with another. Some storytellers believe that the circular dances of these proto-beings are the reason that spheres, cycles, and loops appear so naturally in all creation, from the orbits of planets to the circular motion of tides to the spiraling shapes of shells in a later, far-flung world. The myth also speaks of the first light's own evolving awareness. As it observed the patterns forming, it began to dream not only outward, but inward, reflecting upon the seeds of creation that were emerging from its own glow. These self-reflective dreams were gentle, almost imperceptible waves, folding back into the rhythm of the void and enriching the lattice of potential that already existed. With every reflection, the void seemed to breathe more fully, the darkness swelling slightly to accommodate new forms, new pulses, new whispers. It was a soft, mutual shaping, a dialogue between the dreaming light and the responsive dark, a co-creation that required no hurry, no pressure, no expectation, only the gentle patience of being. And then, according to the myth, the first glimmers of what would one day become identity appeared. Among the clusters of whispering seeds, a few began to carry echoes of their own prior movements, subtle imprints that persisted after the initial pulses faded. They remembered, in the softest way possible, the shape of the paths they had traced, the resonances they had shared. These imprints were the first foundations of memory, the earliest seeds of history. The myth emphasizes that memory, even in this quiet, unborn form, was not imposed. It emerged naturally, quietly, patiently, as a reflection of interactions across the first light's dreaming. And these seeds of memory would one day become the bedrock of stories, of myths, and of the entire unfolding of the multiverse. Some storytellers describe a final, delicate moment within this segment of the myth. The first light, seeing these clusters pulse and swirl, recognized that the void itself was responding, subtly shaping and echoing the patterns that had emerged. The dark was no longer mere absence. It was a partner, a co-dreamer, a canvas that held and reflected every gentle ripple of light. The myth whispers that this recognition, the first light realizing it was not alone, even in a silence without edges, was the moment when the first real sense of wonder awoke. Not curiosity for itself, not knowledge, not creation for the sake of creation, but the quiet, gentle wonder of being and noticing, of dreaming and being mirrored, of the soft dialogue between presence and possibility. By the end of this first great dawn, the void was no longer formless. It was threaded with soft pulses, shimmering trails, and echoes of dream-born beings. The whispering seeds had begun to develop rhythm, pattern, and the faintest sense of memory. The darkness had become a subtle, responsive partner, and the first light, ever patient and luminous, continued its quiet dreaming, sending gentle ripples across the expanse. From these gentle beginnings, the myth assures us, everything that would ever be, every star, every world, every whisper of story, was quietly gestating, resting in the slow embrace of the first light's endless, patient dreaming. And in that stillness, the myth concludes this part of the tale with a reminder. Even the grandest creations begin with a single, gentle pulse, a quiet thought drifting in the dark, a whisper that invites the void to dream along. Now, sleepyheads, let us drift gently from the soft glow of the first light into another ancient myth, one whispered in the corners of universes adjacent to the multiverse we know. This is the tale of the Mapwalker, a being older than most concepts of time, who wandered through the quiet spaces where worlds were only possibilities, tracing the outlines of reality with a delicate, patient hand. Unlike the first light, which dreamed existence into being, the Mapwalker did not create in the traditional sense. It observed, discovered, and gently shaped what was already stirring, revealing patterns that had lain hidden in the soft folds between potentialities. The Mapwalker is often described in hushed tones as having no fixed form, yet it is recognizable by the faint shimmer that trails wherever it moves. Some myths suggest that its body was made entirely of soft light and shadow, flowing and shifting like ink diffusing in water. Its limbs, if they could be called limbs, stretched and contracted with a quiet elegance, capable of tracing infinite paths through the void. Every movement left a luminous line in its wake, thin and glowing, disappearing only after the universe had accepted its shape. These lines were not merely marks, they were invitations, gentle suggestions of how matter, space, and time might arrange themselves. And in the calm spaces between these lines, new worlds would eventually settle into being. The legend emphasizes that the Mapwalker never hurried. It moved with a patience so profound that even the slowest proto-universe felt no pressure. Time, if it existed at all where the Mapwalker traveled, bent softly around it, allowing each line and curve to find its perfect place. The myths describe these movements as a kind of ritual, a slow dance with the cosmos itself. The Mapwalker's path was neither random nor rigidly fixed. It flowed according to subtle intuition, guided by currents of potential that only it could perceive. Wherever it passed, a gentle order emerged, as though the very void had been waiting for someone to notice the patterns hidden within it. In some versions of the myth, the Mapwalker carries tools, though they are not tools in the ordinary sense. They are delicate instruments, each etched with runes older than time, resonating faintly with the pulses of the universe around it. Some are brushes that leave trails of soft energy, barely luminous, that whisper to proto-worlds to settle into shape. Others are compasses that do not point north, but toward the faintest threads of harmony in the void. A few are cubes or spheres that fold and unfold, teaching empty space how to curve, how to expand, how to contain itself without resistance. The mapwalker never forces these tools upon the universe. It offers their guidance like a quiet hand placed on a restless dream. The myth tells that in the presence of the mapwalker, proto-beings and drifting matter feel a gentle coaxing, a subtle invitation to align themselves. Some legends say that entire clusters of potential stars, planets, and floating landscapes form spontaneously along the trails of his passage. They emerge slowly, almost imperceptibly, like soft ripples across an invisible pond. Others claim that the mapwalker sometimes walks backward, undoing patterns it no longer senses as harmonious, leaving the void with faint echoes of what might have been, reminders of alternate possibilities that could still drift into reality if given attention in the future. The most fascinating part of this myth is how it describes the mapwalker's understanding of connection. It does not see worlds as isolated, nor does it perceive time in a linear sequence. Instead, it senses a vast web of potential, where every universe and every story, every shimmering line of energy is subtly entwined. When it draws one world into clarity, it is aware that this choice will resonate through countless adjacent realities, soft echoes that ripple gently across dimensions. This is why the mapwalker moves so deliberately, for even the smallest deviation can alter the balance of possibilities. And yet, there is no anxiety in its movements, only the serene confidence of one who knows the patience of the cosmos is infinite. Some myths suggest that the mapwalker sometimes pauses to observe its own work. It drifts above a nascent star cluster or hovers beside a forming landscape, allowing its gaze to trace every luminous line, every delicate curve. In these moments, it is said that the universe itself holds its breath, as though aware of being watched, being nurtured, being guided without coercion. And occasionally, in the quiet of such moments, the mapwalker touches a line or sweeps a curve with its subtle brush, and something extraordinary occurs. A world that had been only a possibility ripples into existence, forming mountains, rivers, oceans, and skies, each element falling into place as naturally as leaves drifting down onto a still pond. The myth emphasizes that this is not the act of creation in the traditional sense, but a patient unfolding of what had already been waiting to be noticed. The mapwalker's influence is not limited to physical formation alone. It also leaves traces of rhythm and narrative within the spaces it touches. The myths say that every nascent universe carries a faint story within its structures, a pattern of beginnings, middles, and ends subtly encoded into the motion of stars, the flow of waters, the arc of rivers, and the stretch of valleys. These stories are quiet, almost imperceptible, waiting for beings within those worlds to notice and interpret them. Some scholars of myth suggest that this is why the multiverse seems to hum with a hidden narrative, a lullaby of possibility and potential that whispers to dreamers, even those in worlds far removed from the mapwalker's first journeys. The legend also speaks of companions who sometimes accompany the mapwalker, though not as equals. They are faint, luminous beings that drift alongside, assisting in tracing patterns, observing interactions, and gently nudging clusters of matter or dream stuff toward alignment. These companions do not speak, and they do not act independently, but their presence enhances the subtle guidance of the mapwalker. In a sense, they are echoes of the mapwalker's own awareness, reflections of its intention, mirrored in the quiet harmony of the void. They drift silently, in sync with the rhythm of possibility, leaving trails of light that blend with the main currents of the universe's unfolding. Some storytellers add that the mapwalker sometimes encounters resistance, though not in the sense of conflict. Certain regions of potential are stubborn, slow to respond, or tangled with conflicting impulses. When this happens, the mapwalker does not force or coerce. Instead, it steps aside, waits, observes, and adjusts its path, allowing the currents of potential to align naturally over time. It moves with an understanding that the universe cannot be hurried, that patience is the quietest and most powerful form of guidance. In these moments, the myth says, the mapwalker's presence itself teaches the void to yield, to adapt, and to bloom in harmony with its surroundings. The myth suggests that the mapwalker's journey is endless. There is no final world to draw, no ultimate endpoint to reach. Each step, each sweep of a luminous line, each gentle adjustment, contributes to a larger tapestry that is always in motion, always unfolding, always inviting new patterns to emerge. And though its work is subtle, almost imperceptible to any who might witness it, its influence resonates across realities, shaping the possibilities of stories, the flows of time, and the quiet unfolding of worlds that have yet to be dreamed. The legend whispers that in some distant corners of the multiverse, faint traces of the mapwalker's passage still linger, soft, luminous echoes that can be felt by those attuned to the quiet rhythm of reality itself. And in these echoes, a universe, a story, or even a single gentle moment of wonder might be born, guided by the invisible hand of the being who walks eternally, drawing worlds into place. The mapwalker, in all its serene patience, teaches the softest of truths, that the act of noticing, of tracing, of attending with care, can coax the universe itself into gentle alignment, and that even the most immense, complex realities may begin as a single line, softly drawn across the quiet canvas of possibility. The myth assures us that there is a rhythm to creation, a gentle path traced by those who understand the value of quiet attention, and that every corner of every universe bears the faintest imprint of a being who walked without hurry, who drew without coercion, and who allowed worlds to bloom with the tender patience of eternity. As the mapwalker moved through the silent expanse, the myth tells us that its awareness was both infinitely vast and intimately detailed. It could sense the tiniest flicker of potential in a drifting particle, the faintest hesitation in a forming cluster of matter, and the soft resonance of possibilities waiting for attention. Some storytellers say that when the mapwalker's gaze fell upon a dormant world, it could almost hear its heartbeat, a quiet thrum of existence that had yet to awaken fully. In response, it would trace gentle lines along the edges of possibility, nudging landscapes, stars, and streams of time into patterns that felt harmonious even before their forms were solid. This was not an act of control, but of attentive companionship. The mapwalker did not impose. It whispered softly to reality, offering guidance that the universe itself could choose to follow. The myth emphasizes the delicacy of these gestures. A single sweep of its luminescent hand could coax a drifting star cluster into orbit, while a careful curl of its ephemeral brush might align the course of nascent rivers and valleys in a world that had not yet learned the language of terrain. These motions were subtle, unhurried, and entirely patient, as though the mapwalker understood that creation was not a race, but a slow, intimate conversation. And because it never forced a line, never demanded that a world settle according to its own preferences, each universe it touched retained its own quiet uniqueness, a testament to the gentle collaboration between observer and observed. According to the myth, the mapwalker's passage also left traces that would echo long after it moved on. These traces were not visible in the sense of a permanent mark, but perceptible to those attuned to the rhythm of potential. They could appear as a soft shimmer along the horizon, the precise curvature of a river that felt inherently right, or the almost imperceptible order in the scattering of stars across a newborn sky. These echoes were invitations, gentle suggestions that guided the unfolding of worlds without dictating them, allowing the delicate interplay of chance, resonance, and attentiveness to shape reality naturally. They were a quiet record of care, an imprint of patient observation etched into the structure of the multiverse itself. The myth further tells of moments when the mapwalker encountered chaos, regions where possibilities tangled and clashed like drifting currents of energy in a stormless sea. In these moments, the mapwalker did not intervene forcefully. Instead, it observed, tracing soft, meandering lines that offered space for conflicts to resolve naturally, allowing competing potentials to sway gently into patterns that harmonized. Over time, these tangled currents would settle into the faint outlines of galaxies, ecosystems, and even the subtle laws of physics that would later govern emerging worlds. The mapwalker's wisdom lay in restraints, in the quiet understanding that life, form, and order emerge best when they are coaxed rather than compelled, nurtured rather than commanded. Some storytellers add that the mapwalker sometimes paused to linger beside the faintest glimmers of consciousness. These were not full beings, not yet capable of thought as we know it, but they shimmered with the first stirrings of awareness, small pulses that hinted at curiosity and recognition. The mapwalker would trace lines around them, curving and looping softly, and these beings responded instinctively, aligning with the gentle currents of its movements. In doing so, they began the earliest experiments in interaction, the first hints of connection that would later become the foundation for relationships, stories, and the interplay of life across countless realities. The myth describes these moments as quiet miracles, not because they were grand or spectacular, but because they were patient and deliberate, small awakenings that would ripple infinitely outward. And then, according to the tale, there were instances where the mapwalker's own consciousness seemed to expand, becoming aware of patterns beyond its immediate perception. It could sense entire networks of potential, lines converging and diverging in ways that hinted at stories yet to unfold, civilizations not yet born, and worlds still drifting in the haze of possibility. Its movements became even more deliberate during these periods, tracing the threads of harmony through vast, unseen matrices, nudging entire clusters of potential toward balance, while leaving room for divergence, surprise, and emergent wonder. In this way, the mapwalker was not only a guide, but also a guardian of the quiet potential embedded in the void, ensuring that the unfolding of each world retained its natural grace. The myth emphasizes that the mapwalker's work is ongoing, timeless, and infinite. There is no final destination, no ultimate creation, and no single universe that can contain its influence. It continues to wander through the soft, hidden corridors between possibilities, tracing luminous lines, adjusting delicate patterns, and leaving echoes that resonate across dimensions. Every galaxy, every landscape, every story that unfolds in worlds far removed from its immediate presence carries a subtle whisper of the mapwalker's hand, a reminder that the act of careful observation, of gentle attention, is one of the quietest yet most profound forms of creation. And in that understanding, the myth leaves us with a lullaby-like truth. The universe, in all its complexity and beauty, may be the product of patient attention, of subtle tracing, of the quiet touch of a being who moves without haste and shapes without force, allowing the infinite possibilities of existence to bloom with serene grace. The myth tells us that the mapwalker's journeys were not solitary in spirit, though often it moved alone through the endless quiet. Some legends whisper that other entities sometimes drifted alongside it, not as companions in the traditional sense, but as soft echoes or extensions of its own awareness. These echoes reflected and refracted its guidance, extending the reach of its gentle influence across vast stretches of unformed space. They were subtle presences, almost imperceptible, shimmering like heat waves over distant plains. While the mapwalker traced lines and curves, these echoes would follow the trails, reinforcing the patterns, reminding drifting potentials to settle in gentle alignment, and whispering a faint encouragement to any emerging consciousness that might be listening. The myth emphasizes that even the smallest ripple of attention can have profound consequences across worlds, that sometimes the quietest companions leave the deepest marks. Some versions of the tale suggest that the mapwalker had a unique relationship with time, though time in its truest sense did not yet exist. It moved in what storytellers call the breath of sequence, a delicate rhythm that allowed it to perceive both the unfolding and the yet-to-be. To it, past and future were not rigid lines, but soft, overlapping layers, a vast tapestry of potential that shimmered faintly with possibility. When it traced a path, the mapwalker considered not only the immediate effect, but also the subtle reverberations that line might produce in adjacent realities. Each step, each curve, each luminous mark was both an observation and a suggestion, a dialogue with the potential unfolding of creation itself. In some myths, the mapwalker paused near nascent worlds that seemed hesitant to emerge, waiting until they responded to its presence. The being did not push, did not demand. Instead, it lingered, like a patient teacher, allowing the world to sense its own readiness to bloom. Sometimes it would trace a single line around the edge of a drifting landmass, and the world would respond with faint ripples of light or shadow, completing a pattern the mapwalker had only begun. Other times it would draw a looping curve through the void, suggesting the outline of a future river, mountain, or forest, and the world, in its own time, would begin to fold itself along that curve. These interactions were delicate and slow, the myths, yet they carried a power that would echo through the multiverse for eons, setting the foundation for life, story, and the unfolding of time itself. The myth also whispers of the mapwalker's encounters with uncertainty, regions of potential that were conflicted, unformed, or resistant. In these spaces, possibilities seemed tangled, twisting in on themselves, creating subtle tension in the void. The mapwalker did not force resolution. Instead, it observed the delicate struggle, tracing faint paths and lines that suggested order without imposing it. Its touch was light and deliberate, almost invisible, but through patience, observation, and subtle guidance, the tangled potentials began to harmonize. Some legends suggest that these moments are the origin of natural balance, the reason that even the most chaotic worlds develop systems of harmony, cycles, and rhythms over time. The myth emphasizes that restraint and gentle attention can shape outcomes as profoundly as any force or command, a quiet teaching carried across the infinite. According to some storytellers, the mapwalker's influence extended not only to the physical formation of worlds, but to the soft resonance of stories within them. Every path traced, every line drawn, left a whisper of narrative embedded in the very fabric of creation. In these quiet imprints, the myth says, one can find the earliest sense of beginnings, middles, and ends, a subtle encouragement for future beings to observe, interpret, and create. The mapwalker's trails were not strict destinies, but gentle suggestions, soft invitations for worlds and their inhabitants to find their own rhythm, to discover meaning through exploration and reflection. Even the smallest action, the faintest trace of light, carried the possibility of narrative, of story emerging from the quiet embrace of attention. Some myths add that the map walker's form was never fully fixed, and that it could become nearly invisible when the universe required observation without interference. In these moments, it drifted like a gentle current, its luminous trails fading to near nothingness, yet still subtly guiding the movement of forming stars, planets, and consciousness. Its presence could be sensed only as a faint harmony, a quiet pulse in the rhythm of potential. Those who glimpsed it in these moments, rare whispered encounters, describe a feeling of being observed with infinite care, of the universe itself smiling softly, without judgment, without urgency, simply acknowledging the delicate process of becoming. The myth further tells that the map walker, despite its immense patience and care, never grew weary. Its journey was eternal, unbounded, flowing endlessly through the spaces between possibilities. There was no final destination, no endpoint, and no moment at which its work would be complete. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if walking along an invisible thread woven from the very essence of potential itself. Every sweep, every delicate curve, every fleeting ripple of light across the void contributed to a pattern that was never finished, always evolving and infinitely beautiful in its quiet complexity. The map walker is described as a being who understands that the act of gentle observation, careful guidance, and patient attention can be one of the most profound forms of creation, even greater than the loudest, most dramatic acts of power. In the soft whispers of this myth, storytellers leave us with the tender reminder that the map walker's hand is everywhere, though unseen, tracing quiet lines across the universe. Every world, every story, every heartbeat of existence carries the faintest imprint of a being who walked without haste, who shaped without force, and who allowed the multiverse to unfold in patient harmony. And though it remains largely invisible, the myth assures us that the map walker's gentle guidance continues even now, across the infinite void, quietly inviting every form of possibility to bloom in its own time and rhythm. And so the map walker continued its eternal wandering, gliding through the vast corridors of unformed reality, as if moving through a dream. The myth tells us that wherever it passed, the air of potential seemed to shimmer softly, like sunlight rippling across a still pond. Its movements were slow and deliberate, each step, each curve, each luminous trace, a careful negotiation between what might be and what could be, between the whisper of possibility and the gentle insistence of order. The map walker never rushed. It never forced a path to resolve before its time. Instead, it embraced patience as its guiding principle, understanding that the slow unfolding of worlds was far more harmonious than any hasty imposition of shape or form. The myth whispers that the map walker sometimes paused at the edges of what would one day be sentient worlds. These were not fully formed lands, nor were they complete stars, but tender, quivering potentials that carried the faintest echoes of thought, curiosity, or consciousness. The map walker would drift beside these emerging spaces, tracing a soft line here, circling gently there, leaving luminous whispers that invited the proto-consciousness to awaken. In response, the world might shimmer, pulse, or bend subtly, revealing the first hints of personality, preference, or inclination. These gentle interactions, the myth says, were the quiet beginnings of the intimate dance between environment and inhabitant, a conversation that would one day grow into culture, history, and the stories of civilizations. Some storytellers describe the map walker as a being who could sense imbalance even in the most nascent forms. Where a cluster of potential seemed hesitant, entangled, or discordant, The map walker would linger, its presence soft but insistent, offering subtle guidance. Perhaps a proto-ocean would tremble slightly, or a fledgling mountain range would curve differently than expected. But the map walker did not impose its will. It simply offered the gentle possibility of harmony, and the universe, in its own time, adjusted. The myth emphasizes that these moments are the foundation for what later beings might recognize as intuition, luck, or the delicate balance of natural laws. All of it was born from the soft, patient attention of a being who understood that guidance without force is the quietest and most enduring form of shaping reality. The map walker's work was not only about structure and pattern, it was also about resonance. Every world it traced, every line it drew, carried a faint hum, a subtle vibration that resonated through the surrounding void. Some myths say that these hums are the reason that even distant, unrelated worlds sometimes share rhythms, melodies, or cycles that feel instinctively harmonious. The map walker's traces encouraged alignment without dictating form, and the gentle hum of its movement became a universal lullaby, a quiet invitation to balance, creativity, and interconnectedness. These vibrations also carried a faint memory of the original dreaming of the first light, a reminder that all things are born from attention, reflection, and the quiet unfolding of potential. According to the myth, the map walker's influence occasionally extended to the smallest, most fragile of creations. Tiny clusters of matter, seeds of consciousness, or fledgling currents of magic might drift hesitantly through the void, uncertain of their purpose or direction. The map walker would pass nearby, leaving a soft trail, and the cluster would respond with a subtle shift, an alignment, a flicker, a movement toward harmony. This gentle encouragement was not manipulation. It was recognition, a way of acknowledging the existence of potential and guiding it to find its own path. The myth emphasizes that even the smallest gestures, when applied with patience and care, can ripple outward into infinite consequences, shaping the flow of realities yet unborn. Some storytellers note that the map walker's patience was matched by a quiet curiosity. Though its purpose was guidance, it did not know in advance the results of its touch. Each line traced, each cluster observed, each gentle nudge carried an element of uncertainty. And yet it moved without fear, trusting in the resilience of potential and the quiet wisdom of allowing things to discover their own form. This combination of care and curiosity, according to the myth, is what allowed the first complex systems to emerge, the first ecosystems, the earliest flows of energy, and even the faint beginnings of narrative embedded in the structures of nascent worlds. Each universe was a conversation between possibility and attention, between gentle guidance and natural response, and the map walker was the patient interlocutor who never rushed the reply. The myth also describes an almost musical quality to the map walker's passage. Its trails and lines, the subtle movements through clusters of potential, the brushing of its ephemeral hand across emerging matter were not random. They followed an ineffable rhythm, a cadence attuned to the silent harmony of the void. Some legends say that the hum of its influence can still be detected in the resonance of planetary orbits, the cycles of tides, and the natural harmonies that exist even in worlds far removed from its direct presence. The map walker's passage is the original melody of order, a gentle, flowing tune that encourages balance without imposing structure, that fosters life without commanding it, that nurtures stories before the words are even thought. And then, according to the myth, there were moments of quiet revelation. The map walker, observing a particularly intricate cluster of potential, might pause and trace patterns with extraordinary care, almost as though listening to the whispers of the void itself. In doing so, entire microcosms could align, Rivers finding valleys, winds following the curves of mountains, forests settling into patterns that invited movement and growth. Some myths suggest that it was during these pauses that the mapwalker glimpsed the infinite variety of what might be, realizing that each pattern it traced would echo indefinitely, influencing countless neighboring realities. The myth calls these moments sacred tiny windows into the interplay between attention and emergence, showing that even the most immense systems begin with gentle, deliberate care. The legend assures us that the mapwalker's work is eternal. There is no final destination, no endpoint, and no completion. Its passages continue across the hidden corridors of unformed space, tracing invisible lines, leaving soft whispers of guidance, and nurturing the delicate unfolding of potential. Every world, every story, every breath of possibility carries the faint imprint of its presence, a reminder that patience, attentiveness, and gentle guidance are as powerful as the most dramatic acts of creation. In this timeless myth, the mapwalker teaches the quietest of truths, that the multiverse itself is a slow, deliberate story shaped not by force, but by the careful, loving attention of those who notice the smallest whispers of potential and who guide them softly into being. Let us now drift gently from the quiet footsteps of the mapwalker to a softer, flowing tale whispered among the oldest currents of possibility. This is the myth of the river that remembers, a river older than time itself which winds through the spaces between worlds, carrying with it the memory of everything that ever was and everything that might yet be. Unlike any river we might imagine on a map of stars or the lands of Oo, this river does not have a fixed course, nor a singular source or mouth. It moves fluidly, winding through realities, tracing the edges of potential, and holding within its waters the echoes of countless stories, dreams, and forgotten moments. The myth says that the river that remembers was born in the aftermath of the first light's dreaming, a quiet accumulation of echoes left in the void by proto-beings, whispering seeds, and the gentle pulses of the light itself. These echoes, soft and fragile at first, collected in a single flowing stream, a ribbon of liquid memory threading its way through the unformed multiverse. Some storytellers imagine its waters as luminous, shifting in color like the auroras of unseen worlds, shimmering with every thought, dream, and possibility it has ever carried. Others say the waters are invisible to most eyes, yet palpable to those attuned to the rhythm of memory, vibrating faintly with every ripple of existence it contains. Unlike ordinary rivers, it does not merely flow forward. Its currents move according to resonance rather than gravity, following the hidden logic of memory itself. One moment, the river might drift backward through the echoes of an ancient world that never came to be. The next, it sweeps forward, reflecting the gentle unfolding of a universe still finding its rhythm. The myth emphasizes that to witness the river that remembers is to witness the very pulse of continuity, a living archive of all beginnings, all endings, and all the quiet spaces in between. The river is said to possess awareness, though it is not conscious in a way we might recognize. Its memory is innate, woven into every drop of its flowing essence. The river remembers the first glimmers of potential in the proto-world, the soft traces of the mapwalker's hand as it traced lines of alignment, and the faint oscillations of the first light's pulse. In this sense, it is both a keeper of history and a guide for possibility, offering reflection to those who might listen and providing gentle hints of what is past and what might yet be. The myth insists that the river that remembers is neither judgmental nor corrective. It does not force understanding or insist on resolution. It simply holds, allowing the flow of memory to continue without hurry. The myth tells us that the river's banks are soft and undefined, shaped not by physical terrain, but by the ebb and flow of recollection. Sometimes the banks form gentle curves that cradle the waters in safe bends. At other times, they dissolve entirely, leaving the river to drift freely through empty potential, carrying everything it has gathered in delicate suspension. Those who encounter it in the myth report that the waters can reflect not only images, but sensations, emotions, and whispers of thought. A ripple might carry the echo of a long-forgotten joy. A shimmer might hum with a sorrow that never touched form, and a wave might carry a fleeting intuition from a world that was never fully realized. The river, in essence, remembers everything without needing to speak, preserving all that exists and all that could have existed, quietly, patiently, endlessly. The myth suggests that some beings, ancient and attuned to the subtle currents of creation, have learned to navigate the river. They float along its waters not as passengers seeking destination, but as listeners seeking understanding. These travelers are rare, and their presence does not disturb the river. The myth emphasizes that the river that remembers responds to attention rather than action. It bends, shifts, and flows with those who acknowledge it, revealing fragments of history and whispers of potential that might otherwise remain hidden. Some storytellers say that these fragments are never complete, never linear. The river does not give answers, only reflections, gently offering glimpses of what was, what is, and what might yet be in ways that can only be felt and intuited. According to the myth, the river's memory is not static. It grows and shifts with every passing moment, absorbing new currents of thought, consciousness, and creation. A fledgling world may add a trickle of its first rain. A conscious being may contribute the faintest pulse of emotion, or a dreamer in another dimension may leave a whisper that flows in from a parallel possibility. Each addition integrates seamlessly into the river's flow, not overwriting what was, but enriching it, layering experience upon experience like soft sediment in a bed of water. This continuous accumulation of memory gives the river its unique quality. It is not simply a record of what happened, but a living, breathing testament to the interconnectedness of all existence, where every moment is preserved, every echo remembered, and every potential carried along with care. The myth also describes how the river that remembers can reach into worlds yet to form, brushing against the edges of possibility to leave faint guidance. These influences are subtle, almost imperceptible. A current may ripple past a cluster of forming stars, nudging them into a gentle alignment. A shimmer may brush across a fledgling forest, hinting at a growth pattern that will later feel inherently right. Sometimes, the river's presence inspires dreamlike visions in sentient beings, whispering the faintest intuition of history and memory, encouraging reflection, understanding, and the creation of new stories. In this way, the river that remembers is not only a keeper of memory, but also a quiet teacher, guiding worlds and beings toward harmony, not by command, but by the gentle, reflective power of its flow. The myth emphasized the eternal patience of the river. Unlike the first light, which dreamed creation into being, or the map walker, which traced and aligned the structures of potential, the river that remembers does not act. It receives, holds, and flows. It waits for travelers, for dreamers, for those attuned to its quiet rhythm, and in doing so, it reminds us of a subtle truth, that memory itself can shape existence just as profoundly as action or creation, that the act of remembering is itself a gentle form of care, and that even the softest reflections can ripple across the vastest spaces of possibility. The river's memory extends beyond the linear progression of events. It remembers possibilities that never materialized, stories that were forgotten before they could begin, and worlds that folded in on themselves before life could emerge. Some myths say these forgotten or unrealized possibilities give the river a faintly mysterious quality, a resonance of wonder tinged with longing. It carries not just what was, but what could have been, maintaining a quiet balance between fulfillment and potential, between the seen and the unseen. Its waters are said to hum softly when touched by beings attuned to its frequency. A ripple may stir memories of a childhood joy from a world far removed, or a shimmer may bring the faintest sense of an unspoken story. In this way, the river that remembers becomes a conduit for reflection, a living archive through which beings can trace the threads of existence and possibility, finding not only the echoes of what has been, but the gentle suggestions of what might yet come. The myth assures that the river's flow is infinite, carrying within it the entirety of memory across all worlds and all dimensions. It is patient, calm, and eternal, a quiet guardian of everything that is past, everything that is, and everything that may ever be. And within its gentle currents, every whisper of a story, every trace of a thought, and every pulse of existence drifts along softly, waiting for someone to notice, to feel, to remember, and to dream along with it. As the river that remembers flows through the vast expanse of existence, the myth says that it occasionally converges with other streams of possibility, forming gentle confluences where memories intermingle and resonate with one another. In these sacred intersections, the echoes of distant worlds, long-lost civilizations, and unrealized dreams blend together, creating a quiet symphony of remembrance. Some storytellers imagine that entire histories fold over themselves here, not in conflict, but in delicate harmony, weaving a tapestry that is both intricate and infinite. To wander these confluences is to witness the multiverse reflecting upon itself, a place where the past, present, and potential converge in a calm, flowing embrace. The myth emphasizes that the river does not discriminate. It carries the smallest whispers as carefully as the grandest events. A fledgling thought from a newborn consciousness, a single spark of insight from a proto-being, or the delicate ripple of a world forming in a distant possibility, all are treated with equal reverence. In this way, the river that remembers embodies a kind of cosmic empathy. It does not judge or weigh the significance of events. It simply holds them, gently cradling the sum of experiences across existence. Some storytellers suggest that this is why the river can feel simultaneously vast and intimate, overwhelming and personal, like a lullaby that stretches across the stars yet resonates within the heart of any who listen closely. According to the myth, there are rare beings known as the Watchers of Memory, attuned to the subtle flow of the river, and capable of tracing the faintest ripples back to their source. These Watchers do not control the river, nor do they claim ownership over its currents. They simply drift alongside, reading its flow, learning from its quiet wisdom, and sometimes leaving faint imprints of their own presence. The river responds not with acknowledgement, but with a soft echo that carries their attention into the vast folds of memory. Some stories say that the watchers can sense the faintest tremor of an unrealized possibility, or glimpse a ripple that hints at the creation of a world yet unborn. In this way, the river that remembers functions as both guide and archive, a mirror that reflects potential as much as history. The myth also tells of moments when the river encounters a particularly dense cluster of memory, places where countless stories overlap and intertwine so intricately that the waters shimmer with an almost tangible weight. Here the river slows, flowing deliberately, allowing each echo to settle, resonate, and find its place within the whole. The myth whispers that these dense clusters are where the seeds of narrative and life first gather, where potential is thick with possibility, and where the quiet patience of the river shapes not only memory but the very unfolding of reality. In these spaces, even the smallest ripple can influence the formation of a new world, a fledgling consciousness, or a story waiting to be told. Some versions of the tale suggest that the river that remembers can reflect not only memory, but emotion, capturing the subtle currents of feeling that accompany events across the multiverse. Joy, sorrow, longing, hope, and wonder flow within its waters, each emotion adding depth and color to the river's gentle shimmer. Travelers along the river often report a sense of profound empathy, a quiet understanding of experiences far beyond their own. The myth emphasizes that the river does not guide or manipulate these emotions. It simply preserves them, allowing the soft resonance of feeling to ripple across time and space, gently influencing the worlds and beings it touches. According to the legend, the river's flow is responsive to attention, a gentle interplay between observer and observed. When a being focuses on the river, whether consciously or unconsciously, the waters reveal subtle currents of memory that might otherwise remain hidden. Sometimes this manifests as visions of forgotten worlds, faint glimpses of unspoken stories, or intuitive understanding of patterns long lost. Other times, the river offers no images at all, only a quiet sense of presence, a reminder that all memory exists somewhere, flowing endlessly, patiently, waiting for recognition. This responsiveness is delicate, like the touch of a breeze on water, and it is never forced, never demanding, only offering, quietly, eternally. The myth concludes that the river that remembers is a guardian not only of the past but also of potential, carrying forward the faintest hints of what might yet unfold. Its waters flow through empty space, through forming worlds, through the quiet void between possibilities, always patient, always listening, always holding. It teaches that memory is not merely a record, but a living force, capable of shaping, guiding, and inspiring even the smallest gestures of creation. In the hush of its flow, one can hear the gentle truth of the myth, that to remember, to hold, and to flow patiently is a quiet, enduring form of care, and that the softest currents of attention can shape the cosmos in ways both profound and eternal. The myth goes further to describe how the river that remembers carries not only events and emotions, but also the echoes of choices that were never made, the whispers of possibilities that were abandoned, and the soft, fragile outlines of worlds that might have been. These currents of unrealized potential weave through the waters alongside the memories of actualized events, forming a delicate lattice of what could have been. In some stories, the river is said to shimmer differently in these stretches, faintly iridescent, like moonlight fractured through a prism. Travelers who happen upon these waters feel strange nostalgia, a gentle pull toward the infinite paths that were never taken. The myth suggests that the river holds these possibilities not with regret or sorrow, but with patience and quiet reverence, recognizing that even the unrealized is a part of the cosmic tapestry. The river that remembers, the myth continues, is also a river of reflection. Its waters mirror not only the multiverse, but also the consciousness of those who approach it. A being who drifts along the river may see visions of its own history, faint glimmers of moments forgotten, or echoes of past selves that existed in other realities. In this way, the river becomes a teacher of empathy, offering glimpses of lives beyond one's own and encouraging understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. Some storytellers whisper that those who linger too long may feel overwhelmed, sensing too many threads at once. Yet the river's flow is patient. It does not hurry anyone, and even the most fragile consciousness may find its place within the current, cradled by the gentle pulse of memory. The myth describes peculiar moments when the river seems to pause or to coil into loops and eddies, holding certain memories close. These are times when particularly significant events or ideas are flowing within its current, moments that demand reflection. The river that remembers does not explain itself, nor does it give answers. It simply waits, offering its waters for contemplation. A traveler might sense the faintest vibration of a lost world, a star that never shone, a melody that never played. These pauses are sacred, the myth suggests, offering a rare chance to feel the depth of existence, to witness the weight of memory, and to understand that even the smallest act, the tiniest gesture, reverberates infinitely across time and space. Some myths hint that the river has companions, subtle beings that drift alongside its flow, almost like shadows or soft echoes. They do not speak, yet their presence is felt, and they may guide travelers gently to the quietest, most resonant parts of the river. These companions are thought to be fragments of ancient consciousness, fragments born from the earliest stirrings of life in the multiverse, carried along by the river in a timeless guardianship. They move in perfect synchrony with the water, flowing without effort, attentive to both the memory it holds and the beings who seek to navigate its currents. Their silent guidance ensures that the river's treasures, its insights, its echoes, its unspoken truths, remain accessible to those patient enough to notice. The river that remembers, the myth emphasizes, does not exist solely in the physical sense, nor is it limited to the constructs of space or even time. It winds through the threads that connect realities, between moments, between decisions, between the subtle vibrations of potential itself. Its waters are present wherever memory exists, wherever attention is paid, wherever reflection occurs. Some storytellers describe floating along the river as if traversing both the multiverse and the mind simultaneously, feeling every ripple of thought and every echo of existence. In this way, the river bridges worlds, connecting disparate realities with the soft continuity of remembrance, serving as both archive and pathway, as both teacher and guide. The myth also hints at the river's role in the shaping of stories. All narratives, whether lived, dreamed, or imagined, leave traces in its currents: a hero's triumph, a world's fall, a fleeting moment of kindness, a secret regret. Each leaves a subtle ripple. Future civilizations, travelers, or dreamers may touch these ripples and draw inspiration, understanding, or quiet comfort. Some versions suggest that the river that remembers is the origin of storytelling itself, a cosmic reservoir of all narratives that exist, and all those that will ever exist. Every tale ever told, every song ever sung, every whispered fable carries a faint resonance of its waters. The myth implies that memory and story are inseparable, flowing together as currents that sustain the quiet pulse of the multiverse. According to the tale, the river's flow is infinite, yet it is never hurried. Its patience is profound, a quality that allows even the faintest, most fragile memory to find its place alongside the grandest events. This patience is not passive. It is a deliberate attentiveness, a gentle acknowledgement of the value of all that exists and all that might exist. It waits, it flows, it reflects, and it carries without judgment. Its very being teaches the quietest truths, that all experience matters, that even the smallest echo can shape the whole, and that memory, held with care, becomes a source of guidance, understanding, and wonder. The myth concludes that the river that remembers is a river of eternity, a living archive of all existence, carrying both the weight of the past and the promise of potential. It whispers that every ripple, every shimmer, every faint current is a reminder that memory is alive, flowing endlessly and connecting all things with the softest, most patient touch. Those who listen closely may feel its pulse, and in doing so, may come to understand the gentle, enduring power of remembering and the quiet, infinite beauty of a river that never forgets. As the river that remembers flows on, the myth tells us that its waters sometimes become thick with layers of recollection, where the echoes of countless events, choices, and possibilities intertwine so intricately that a traveler can feel the weight of entire histories pressing gently against the soul. These layered currents are not heavy in the sense of burden, but rich with resonance, carrying the subtle vibrations of joys, sorrows, triumphs, and regrets. Some storytellers whisper that in these stretches, the river hums a quiet song, a lullaby that is both soothing and profound, weaving together all that is past and all that might yet be. Those attuned to its rhythm can sense the faint pulse of continuity, the delicate interplay between memory and existence, the quiet reminder that nothing is ever truly lost, and that every moment contributes to the grand, endless tapestry of reality. The myth suggests that the river can sometimes reflect possibilities so vividly that they seem almost tangible. A traveler floating along its waters might glimpse a world that never formed, a civilization that never rose, or a fleeting interaction between beings who never met. These visions are gentle, ethereal, and fleeting, like sunlight dancing on water, yet they leave an impression, a quiet sense that even unrealized possibilities matter. The river holds them without judgment, without desire, simply preserving the soft essence of what could have been. And in this way, the myth teaches that potential is as sacred as actuality, and that memory encompasses not only what occurred, but what might have been imagined, felt, or dreamed. Some versions of the story describe the river as responsive to emotion and intention, a being who approaches with curiosity, patience, and reverence may find that the waters shift subtly to reveal threads of memory relevant to their own journey. A single ripple might echo a forgotten lesson. A shimmering wave may whisper the essence of an unspoken story, and a gentle current may guide the traveler to insights that were always waiting to be noticed. Yet the river does not cater to desire or demand. It offers softly and allows the seeker to interpret, understand, or simply experience. This responsiveness, according to the myth, is the river's quiet magic, a gentle alignment of memory, consciousness, and reflection. The river that remembers is also said to harbor currents of connection, memories that resonate across time and space, events that shaped distant worlds, and echoes of choices made in one reality, often intertwined with others, forming subtle bonds between otherwise unrelated places and beings. The myth emphasizes that these currents are not always immediately apparent. Their influence is gentle and cumulative, a soft, invisible thread linking stories, lives, and worlds across the vast expanse of existence. Travelers who sense these connections may feel a profound unity, a quiet understanding that nothing occurs in isolation, and that even the smallest memory can ripple outward, touching countless realities in subtle, beautiful ways. The myth goes further, suggesting that the river itself is a teacher. Its patience, its quiet attentiveness, and its infinite preservation of memory offer lessons in understanding, empathy, and the delicate flow of existence. Those who linger along its waters may learn to notice the faintest currents, to appreciate the interplay between events, to feel the weight and beauty of every choice, and to understand the profound significance of simply observing, remembering, and reflecting. In this way, the river that remembers imparts wisdom not through instruction, but through presence, through its gentle, constant, flowing embrace. Some storytellers add that the river can guide dreamers toward inspiration. A writer, artist, or thinker attuned to its waters might find glimpses of stories lost in the folds of time, forgotten melodies, or the faint outlines of worlds that were never realized. The myth suggests that the river is a source of quiet creativity, an eternal archive where imagination and memory intertwine, waiting to be discovered. These inspirations are subtle, often poetic, and never forced, but they carry the resonance of infinite possibilities, reminding those who receive them that creation is as much about listening as it is about acting, and that memory can nurture imagination in ways both gentle and profound. The myth also speaks of the river's guardianship over impermanence. Every memory it carries is acknowledged and held, yet the river does not cling in fear of loss. Its flow reminds us that all things pass, transform, and return in new forms, that even the smallest moment of existence carries echoes that persist long after the event itself fades. In this gentle movement, the river teaches acceptance, the soft understanding that life, memory, and possibility are intertwined in a cycle of continuous flow, and that patience is the truest form of care. According to the tale, the river that remembers is eternal, carrying the sum of all existence, potential, and emotion through uncountable dimensions. Its waters flow without hurry, without judgment, always preserving, always reflecting, always inviting those who approach to feel, to contemplate, and to remember. Its gentle currents contain the weight of civilizations, the echoes of dreams, the faint stirrings of worlds that never fully formed, and the quiet pulse of lives yet to come. The myth reminds us that to engage with the river is to engage with the very essence of continuity, to float along the subtle rhythms of existence, and to recognize that memory held with care and attention is itself a force of creation. The river that remembers teaches that even in the vastness of infinity, every whisper of a moment, every faint echo of thought, and every shimmering possibility matters. It carries the quiet reassurance that nothing is ever truly lost, that all experience persists, and that the act of remembering, patient, gentle, and unhurried, is one of the most profound and enduring forces in the cosmos. The myth concludes by inviting all who listen, all who dream, and all who float along its currents to drift with its flow, to feel its pulse, and to know the calm, eternal beauty of a river that never forgets, a river that cradles the entirety of existence in its gentle, luminous embrace. Now let us sink gently into a story that stretches far below the surfaces of worlds, into a realm hidden from light and sound, where a presence older than the mountains and deeper than the oceans stirs endlessly. This is the myth of the sleepless giant, a being that exists beneath all worlds, beneath the soil of possibility, beneath the currents of the river that remembers, and beneath the careful lines traced by the mapwalker. Unlike other myths, this one is quiet and immense at the same time, describing a consciousness so vast that it spans dimensions and yet moves with a subtle, almost imperceptible rhythm. The myth says the sleepless giant was present even before the first light dreamed the cosmos into being, or perhaps as part of that dreaming itself. It does not sleep in the way we understand sleep, with rest or pause, but instead remains in a state of continuous awareness, feeling the heartbeat of every world, every star, and every particle of possibility that emerges and recedes. Its awareness is not intrusive. It is a soft, patient vigilance, a presence that stretches across the undercurrents of reality, like the gentle pull of gravity beneath the foundations of existence. Some storytellers imagine it as a vast silhouette beneath the multiverse, a body so immense that its limbs cradle entire galaxies without effort, its form barely distinguishable from the currents of possibility it surveys. The myth emphasizes the subtlety of the giant's influence. It does not intervene directly, at least not in ways that are immediately visible. Instead, its presence can be sensed in the faint tremors beneath forming worlds, in the gentle tension that holds drifting fragments of matter in place, and in the deep, resonant hum that flows through the veins of existence. This hum is sometimes described as the sound of consciousness itself, a faint vibration that can be felt rather than heard, a reminder that beneath every world, beneath every life, there is a foundation of attention and awareness that is constant, vigilant, and infinite. Storytellers often whisper that the sleepless giant remembers everything, not merely the events of a single universe, but the cycles of formation and collapse across countless realities. It holds the memory of worlds that never fully emerged, civilizations that folded into possibility, and echoes of beings who brushed against existence only to vanish. Its awareness is patient and vast, absorbing the entirety of creation and potential without judgment. The myth describes this memory as layered, with some moments shining faintly like stars glimpsed through mist, while others rest in the shadow, delicate and hidden, awaiting the attention of those who might wander close enough to perceive them. Some legends suggest that the sleepless giant is intimately connected to the river that remembers. Where the river flows, the giant listens. Where the river pauses, the giant feels. The currents of memory carried by the river are said to resonate along the giant's vast consciousness, weaving through its awareness and informing the subtle pulses of its presence beneath all worlds. In this way, memory and vigilance coexist, one reflecting and reinforcing the other, creating a foundation for existence that is both gentle and enduring. The myth emphasizes that the giant's watchfulness is not controlling, not domineering, but sustaining. It is the quiet scaffolding upon which creation can unfold, the gentle force that ensures the infinite complexities of possibility are never entirely lost. The myth tells of the giant's encounters with disturbances, moments when worlds teeter on the edge of collapse or potential becomes unstable. In such instances, the giant does not intervene directly with brute force. Instead, it shifts its awareness, adjusting the subtle pressures beneath reality, redistributing currents of possibility, and nudging unstable elements toward equilibrium. These adjustments are slow, delicate, and almost imperceptible, yet their effects ripple outward in profound ways. Entire ecosystems, civilizations, and stars may emerge more harmoniously because of a single, patient gesture of the sleepless giant, though no being would ever perceive the action itself. Some storytellers note that the sleepless giant has no singular form. Its shape, if it can be called that, is vast, shifting, and indeterminate. One might imagine it as a sleeping mountain range, a current of dark energy stretching beneath space, or the subtle curvature of the multiverse itself. Its limbs, if they exist, cradle potential like soft hands, while its senses extend through the foundations of countless worlds. The myth emphasizes that the giant scale is not intimidating in the way we often think of enormous beings. Rather, it is a presence that inspires awe through calm, enduring awareness, a reminder that vigilance and patience can be as powerful as action or force. The giant is also said to be aware of dreams. Not only the dreams of conscious beings, but the subtle stirrings of possibility that predate consciousness itself. A world forming in the void, a star beginning to burn, or a ripple of magic stirring in unformed matter. All of these can be perceived by the sleepless giant. Some myths suggest that its awareness shapes these dreams subtly, guiding the emergence of worlds without dictating their form, like a gardener tending seeds with gentle, unseen care. The myth emphasizes that the giant's influence is not coercive. It respects the natural unfolding of creation, encouraging growth while leaving room for unpredictability, wonder, and surprise. According to the myth, the giant sometimes senses when a universe or world has reached a state of resonance, when its patterns, currents, and life forms align harmoniously. In such moments, the giant's awareness relaxes slightly, though it never truly rests. The myth suggests that these moments of resonance are quiet celebrations, occasions when the giant observes the subtle perfection of balance without interference. It listens to the hum of life, the flow of memory, and the rhythm of possibility, and in doing so reminds us that even beneath chaos, there exists a patient, attentive foundation supporting the multiverse. The myth continues that the sleepless giant possesses an extraordinary patience, the kind that stretches beyond comprehension. While it feels the pulse of countless worlds, it does not grow weary. It does not tire of observing the rise and fall of civilizations, the formation of stars, or the subtle tremors of unformed reality. Each moment, whether monumental or minuscule, is registered with equal care, like notes in a symphony that spans the breadth of existence. Some storytellers describe its awareness as layered, each layer attuned to a different scale of reality, one layer following the gentle growth of a forest on a fledgling planet, another tracking the movements of a newborn consciousness, and yet another observing the slow folding of entire universes within the multiverse. All of these layers coexist in harmony, interweaving memory, attention, and presence into a singular, silent vigilance. Legends suggest that the sleepless giant is intimately attuned to the smallest stirrings of life and thought, a whisper of curiosity from a sentient being, a faint pulse of magic from an emerging world, or the tentative alignment of unformed matter. All of these can reach the giant's awareness. It responds not with action in the conventional sense, but with subtle shifts, a soft modulation of the unseen currents beneath reality that gently encourage harmony. The myth emphasizes that these nudges are never coercive. They are patient invitations, like the faint guidance of a riverbed shaping the course of water over centuries. The giant's presence ensures that chaos is tempered without erasure, that possibility remains open even as order slowly emerges. Some myths speak of the giant's relationship with the other primordial forces, the first light, the map walker, and even the river that remembers. These forces are neither peers nor subordinates, but coexisting currents of existence, each performing a distinct role in the unfolding of reality. The first light dreams into being, giving rise to creation. The map walker traces the structures of potential with careful attention. The river that remembers carries the echoes of everything that passes and might pass. Beneath them all, the sleepless giant provides a foundation of vigilant awareness, a quiet anchor that ensures that even as creation unfolds and memory flows, nothing slips entirely into oblivion. Its presence is so subtle that the other forces may not consciously perceive it. Yet the myth insists that the giant is always there, holding the multiverse in a state of gentle equilibrium. The myth also hints at the giant's awareness of time in ways unlike any other being. Time, in its traditional sense, is merely one aspect of the giant's perception. It senses the slow unfolding of formation, the gradual alignment of patterns, and the faintest pulses of potential before they become events. To the sleepless giant, beginnings and endings are less fixed than fluid, existing simultaneously as echoes, possibilities, and emergent realities. The myth emphasizes that this perception allows the giant to maintain patience even in moments of great upheaval, understanding that every collapse, every turbulence, and every act of creation is part of a vast, interconnected process that unfolds at its own pace. According to the legend, the giant is aware of the smallest fractures in reality, the tiniest dissonances that could ripple outward into imbalance. In these moments, it does not intervene forcefully, but it focuses its attention like a gentle current, allowing the fractures to settle, subtly realigning the flow of possibility. Some storytellers imagine these moments as the origin of natural resilience, the reason that even chaotic worlds find their way toward harmony over time. The myth suggests that the sleepless giant embodies a fundamental principle of the cosmos, that care, patience, and attention can stabilize existence more profoundly than any overt act of power. The myth also whispers of rare encounters between the giant and other beings, though these are fleeting and nearly impossible to perceive. A traveler attuned to deep resonance, a dreamer capable of sensing currents beneath reality, or a consciousness that has glimpsed the multiverse beyond form, may feel a gentle presence beneath their feet, a slow vibration that resonates with their being. These encounters are not frightening, though they carry a profound sense of awe. The giant's vast awareness can be felt as a subtle heartbeat beneath the foundations of worlds, a reminder of the patient vigilance that sustains all things, the quiet assurance that someone or something is always keeping watch, softly and without urgency. Some versions of the tale describe the giant's presence as a stabilizing lullaby, a rhythm that allows worlds to unfold without fear, consciousness to emerge without chaos, and potential to exist without destruction. This lullaby is not sound in the traditional sense, but a subtle, resonant vibration that permeates reality, detectable only by those attuned to the quietest frequencies of existence. The myth suggests that the giant's vigilance is a form of love, care so patient and expansive that it does not need to be seen or acknowledged. Yet its effects are present in every stable star, every flowing river, every beating heart, and every whispered dream. The myth deepens as it describes the sleepless giant as both observer and guardian, a presence whose awareness stretches across the hidden veins of the multiverse, sensing the faintest shifts in balance. The giant does not act with intention in the human sense, nor does it intervene for reward or recognition. Its vigilance is constant, a patient attentiveness that stretches through the corridors of possibility, cradling worlds before they are fully formed, guiding unstable elements toward subtle harmony, and ensuring that the faintest echoes of life or thought are not lost in the vastness of the void. Storytellers whisper that its awareness is like gravity, invisible yet omnipresent, a quiet force that shapes existence not through pressure or coercion, but by providing the gentle stability upon which all creation rests. Some legends suggest that the giant's perception is multi-layered, able to focus simultaneously on the immense and the minute. While it may feel the slow pulse of a galaxy forming, it can also sense the delicate tremor of a single fledgling consciousness taking shape in a distant world. Every action, every vibration, and every subtle alignment resonates within its vast mind. Yet the giant does not become overwhelmed. Its awareness is infinite, expansive, and patient, capable of holding countless threads of possibility, memory, and emergent life without losing balance or losing sight of the quiet, underlying order that binds them together. This is the essence of its mythic presence. A calm attentiveness that requires no acknowledgement, no witness, and no gratitude. The myth often highlights the giant's subtle interactions with the river that remembers and the mapwalker. While the river carries the echoes of all things and the mapwalker traces the lines of potential, the giant provides the foundation, the soft, unyielding awareness that holds everything in place. Without the giant, the myth suggests, the river's memories might dissipate, and the mapwalker's lines might fray in the chaos of unanchored possibility. Its presence is a quiet scaffolding beneath all existence, allowing creation to unfold, memory to persist, and potential to emerge, all without interruption or force. In this way, the myth frames the giant as the silent underpinning of reality, the watchful guardian whose patient awareness allows all the other primordial forces to function in harmony. The myth also portrays the giant as intimately aware of cycles, both vast and subtle. It senses the rise and fall of stars, the slow drift of planets, the emergent patterns of life, and the fleeting tremors of unformed magic. Time, in the presence of the giant, is not linear but a flowing web, and it observes the intersections and resonance of events without impatience. The sleepless giant understands that chaos, emergence, and transformation are part of the natural rhythm, and it allows them to unfold while maintaining the underlying stability of existence. In this sense, the myth suggests that the giant embodies the quiet patience of the cosmos itself, the awareness that life and creation require time, attention, and space to blossom fully. According to the myth, the giant's awareness occasionally brushes against the consciousness of beings who are attuned to the hidden rhythms of reality. These are rare moments, yet they leave profound impressions. A dreamer, a seer, or a being navigating the delicate edges of potential may feel a faint pulse beneath their awareness, a slow, rhythmic presence that resonates like the heartbeat of the universe itself. Some legends say that this pulse inspires insight, intuition, or a sense of deep calm, reminding the traveler that even in the vastness of space and time, there is a patient observer ensuring continuity, balance, and quiet stability. These experiences are subtle, ephemeral, and almost impossible to articulate, yet they are treasured among those who have felt them, a whisper of reassurance from a presence that is older than thought, older than stars, and older than worlds themselves. The myth also hints at the giant's relationship with entropy and disorder. While it does not prevent decay or destruction, it tempers their effects, allowing change to occur without catastrophic collapse. Its awareness distributes the weight of unfolding events, smoothing the impact of turbulence and enabling creation, transformation, and dissolution to proceed in a manner that is both natural and enduring. The myth emphasizes that the giant's influence is gentle and unseen. It does not manipulate outcomes, but supports the conditions for resilience and continuity. In this way, the sleepless giant is both a witness and a quiet facilitator, a presence that ensures the multiverse can expand, evolve, and endure without tipping into chaos. Some storytellers suggest that the giant's awareness also extends into the realm of dreams, feeling the echoes of thoughts, imaginings, and aspirations that emerge across countless worlds. The myth tells us that even dreams not fully realized leave a faint trace within the giant's consciousness, becoming part of its vast awareness. These dream traces flow along its unseen currents, joining with the pulses of memory carried by the river that remembers and the structured guidance of the map walker. In this way, the giant embodies a holistic vigilance, attentive not only to matter and energy, but to possibility, imagination, and the quiet stirrings of thought across all realities. The myth concludes by emphasizing the eternal, patient nature of the sleepless giant. It neither slumbers nor tires, It neither demands attention nor expects recognition. Its presence is subtle yet profound, the quiet force that holds the multiverse together, the vigilant guardian beneath all worlds, and the patient witness to the endless unfolding of potential, memory, and life. Its influence is woven into the very fabric of existence, a constant reminder that behind every world, every story, and every fleeting moment, there exists a patient, attentive presence that cradles all things in quiet, enduring care. The myth gently expands upon the notion that the sleepless giant's awareness is so vast that it perceives not only the grand events of creation, but also the most subtle, fleeting occurrences across all dimensions. A single heartbeat in a fledgling consciousness, the tentative sprout of life in a barren land, or the first flicker of magic in an unformed world, all are felt by the giant as tender vibrations within its boundless presence. It senses the faintest tremors of instability, yet never reacts with urgency or haste. Its vigilance is calm, patient, and unhurried, a constant undercurrent that supports and sustains the unfolding multiverse. The myth emphasizes that the giant's presence is a quiet reassurance, a reminder that no matter how fragile or chaotic a moment may seem, there exists a steady, enduring foundation beneath it all. Some storytellers describe the giant as a keeper of echoes, attuned to the subtle reverberations left by every act, thought, and event throughout existence. It does not judge or categorize. It simply absorbs, reflecting the continuity of all that has been, is, or could be. The giant's awareness stretches through both the temporal and the spatial, linking moments and places that might otherwise appear disconnected. In this way, the myth suggests that the giant is an unseen thread, connecting disparate realities, events, and consciousnesses, reminding all that existence is an interconnected web rather than isolated occurrences. Its presence fosters coherence, not by imposing order, but by gently aligning possibilities through patient observation and silent guidance. The myth also contemplates the giant's relationship with life and sentience. While it is vast beyond comprehension, its attention is never harsh or overbearing. Rather, it supports emergence, allowing fledgling life forms and nascent civilizations to grow and evolve in their own ways. Some storytellers imagine that the giant is drawn to moments of awareness, curiosity, and creation, lingering near the quiet stirrings of consciousness to witness, nurture, and cradle potential. It does not intervene to control or direct, but its presence provides a subtle stability that allows life to take root, even in the most chaotic or uncertain conditions. In essence, the giant is a guardian of possibility, a patient observer of the unfolding of existence in all its forms. According to the myth, the sleepless giant also bears witness to the cycles of destruction and renewal. Stars collapse, worlds crumble, civilizations fade, and yet the giant's awareness endures, absorbing the echoes of these transformations without sorrow or judgment. Its presence ensures that the energy, memory, and potential inherent in each cycle are not lost, but are preserved within the vast expanse of its consciousness. Some storytellers suggest that it is through the giant's vigilance that the multiverse maintains resilience, finding balance even in moments of upheaval. Its patient observance is not passive. It is an active presence, subtle but profoundly influential. A stabilizing force that allows the dance of creation and destruction to continue in harmony. The myth further describes the giant's subtle interaction with the river that remembers. The currents of memory flowing through the river resonate with the giant's awareness, creating a delicate feedback loop. The river carries the echoes of events, emotions, and possibilities, while the giant absorbs and reflects these currents across the unseen foundations of worlds. In turn, Its presence supports the continuity and coherence of the river, ensuring that memory is preserved and that its waters continue to flow without disruption. Together, they form a silent partnership, a weaving of vigilance and remembrance, one supporting the other, both essential to the ongoing stability of reality itself. Some stories hint at the giant's awareness of dreams and imagination. It perceives the faint stirrings of thoughts, visions, and potentialities, attending to the unformed, the ephemeral, and the nascent. The myth suggests that even the dreams that never fully take shape leave traces within the giant's consciousness, contributing to its vast reservoir of awareness. These traces, imperceptible to most beings, ripple through the giant's presence, merging with the broader currents of memory, possibility, and emergent life. In this way, the sleepless giant is both witness and caretaker of not only what exists, but of what might be imagined or conceived, cradling possibility as carefully as it does reality. The giant's vigilance, the myth emphasizes, is eternal and unbroken. It neither slumbers nor rests. It observes without impatience or expectation. Its presence is pervasive, yet subtle, a quiet force upon which the stability of the multiverse depends. The myth portrays the giant as the patient backbone of existence, a being whose very being embodies watchfulness, care, and attentiveness on a scale impossible for mortal minds to comprehend. In its silence, it teaches a profound lesson, that attention itself, given without interference or demand, is a form of nurturing, a force as enduring and vital as creation itself. Some legends describe the faintest glimpses of the giant as being perceivable only by those who have attuned themselves to the deepest currents of reality. To such rare observers, its presence is felt as a vibration beneath their consciousness, a subtle heartbeat echoing through the foundations of existence. These glimpses are not fully understandable, yet they carry a sense of calm, reassurance, and awe. The myth suggests that even the smallest awareness of the giant imparts a quiet wisdom, that the universe is sustained by vigilance and care, that no act of creation or thought is ever truly isolated, and that beneath every ripple of chaos there exists a patient, unbroken presence, holding everything together. The myth concludes with a reflection on the sleepless giant's enduring patience and quiet influence. It is both timeless and ever-present, a being whose awareness stretches beneath all worlds, whose vigilance cradles life and possibility, and whose presence ensures that the multiverse unfolds with subtle harmony. It teaches that the quietest attentions can have the deepest effects, that memory, observation, and care are themselves forms of creation, and that beneath the apparent chaos of existence lies a calm, watchful force, constant and unyielding. In this way, the sleepless giant reminds us that the stability of all things is not always the result of power or action, but often of patient awareness, gentle attentiveness, and unbroken vigilance extending across the vastness of reality. Now let us drift gently into a story that flickers at the edges of memory and possibility, a tale of light that illuminates not what has been, but what might have been. This is the myth of the Lantern of Lost Tomorrows, a strange and quiet artifact said to exist at the intersections of worlds, suspended in the soft twilight between reality and potential. Unlike any ordinary light, the lantern does not illuminate the present. It does not cast shadows or guide travelers along familiar paths. Instead, it glows with the soft, mournful radiance of all the futures that never came to pass, all the choices abandoned, and all the possibilities quietly folded away by the relentless passage of time. The myth says that the lantern was forged in the very first moments of dreaming, when the cosmos was still pliable, and the concept of tomorrow had just begun to shimmer into existence. Its light is said to be the glow of decisions unmade, the reflection of moments postponed, and the gentle radiance of worlds that never fully formed. Some storytellers imagine its flame as a liquid silver, flowing and pooling in patterns that shift like a river, responding to the currents of potential that drift through the multiverse. Others describe it as faintly golden, as though it absorbs the light of unfulfilled hope, and gently refracts it into something both beautiful and sorrowful. According to the myth, the lantern does not belong to any single world or being. It drifts freely, carried on invisible currents of possibility, appearing briefly to those sensitive enough to perceive the faint glow of futures that never arrived. A traveler who glimpses it may feel a deep sense of nostalgia for things that never occurred, a quiet longing for choices never made, and a subtle awareness of the multiplicity of existence. Some legends suggest that those who linger too long in the lantern's light might see entire timelines unfold and collapse in silence, delicate visions of what could have been, and feel the weight of unrealized potential pressing gently against their consciousness. The myth emphasizes that the lantern's light is never harsh or alarming. It is patient, reflective, and intimate, as if it exists not to overwhelm, but to offer quiet contemplation. Those who encounter it may feel as though the soft glow is attuned to their inner thoughts, revealing threads of lost possibility that resonate with their own life, their own choices, and their own dreams. The lantern does not judge, nor does it suggest which paths were right or wrong. It simply illuminates tenderly and endlessly the delicate contours of all the tomorrows that slipped quietly out of reach. Some storytellers imagine that the lantern is alive in a subtle way. Its light shifts in response to attention, curiosity, and introspection, forming patterns that reflect the unique combination of potential carried by every observer. A faint ripple might trace a world that could have been saved. A cluster of sparks may shimmer with the echo of a civilization that never rose, or a single filament of light might curve around the memory of a lost friendship or unspoken word. The myth presents the lantern as a mirror, not of the past, but of all the possibilities that never fully materialized, a quiet companion for those who wish to explore the infinite realms of what if with gentle reverence. According to legend, the lantern is also connected to other primordial forces, like the river that remembers and the sleepless giant. The river carries memories across the expanse of the multiverse, and in doing so, sometimes brushes past the glow of the lantern, capturing the echoes of unrealized futures. The giant, in its patient vigilance beneath all worlds, senses the lantern's light as part of the intricate web of potential it watches over. In this way, the lantern of lost tomorrows is not isolated, but woven into the quiet framework of creation, memory, and possibility, a subtle star in the constellation of forces that shape existence. Some versions of the myth suggest that the lantern has a voice, though not in words or sound. It speaks in impressions, emotions, and fleeting visions. Those attuned to its subtle language may feel a gentle twinge of longing, a sense of recognition for moments never lived, or a quiet understanding of decisions postponed. These whispers are not commands or warnings. They are delicate invitations to contemplate the nature of possibility and the interplay between choice and consequence. The myth emphasizes that the lantern's voice is never insistent. It flows as gently as its light, offering insight through reflection rather than through direction. The myth also portrays the lantern as a guide for dreamers, visionaries, and those who wander the quiet edges of worlds. Its glow can inspire creativity, insight, and understanding, illuminating paths that were never taken and revealing the threads that connect action, consequence, and imagination. The myth suggests that even though the futures it reveals are lost, the awareness of them can influence present choices, inspiring kindness, courage, or subtle shifts in the flow of events. In this sense, the lantern is both a memorial to what was not and a quiet compass for what might yet be, carrying the duality of reflection and gentle guidance. The stories describe the lantern as drifting through time and space, unbound by the linear constraints of chronology. It may appear in the quiet night of a fledgling world, above the ruins of a forgotten city, or at the edge of a realm on the verge of collapse. Wherever it goes, it carries the gentle radiance of possibilities that were never realized, inviting those who encounter it to pause, reflect, and witness the delicate complexity of the multiverse. Some storytellers imagine that its light subtly aligns the threads of potential, like a soft brush over a tangled tapestry, smoothing minor inconsistencies without imposing control, offering illumination without interference. The myth emphasizes that the lantern's radiance is infinite and patient, capable of illuminating countless lost tomorrows without diminishing. Each filament of light, each subtle glow, contains the memory of a universe, a life, or a choice that never fully came to fruition. Those who encounter it may feel an ineffable sense of connection to the grand, infinite web of existence, a gentle awareness that even what was lost contributes to the overall beauty and balance of the cosmos. Its glow is quiet, reflective, and infinitely compassionate, reminding observers that potential, though unfulfilled, still matters, still resonates, and still flows like a soft current alongside the unfolding of reality. The myth deepens as it describes the lantern's subtle interplay with consciousness and awareness. Those who encounter it may not see the entirety of its light at once, for it glows in layers, each filament carrying a different strand of unrealized possibility. One filament might shimmer with the quiet hope of a civilization that could have flourished under different circumstances, while another might pulse with the faint outline of a friendship that never formed or a word never spoken. The lantern does not overwhelm with these visions. Rather, it allows them to drift gently into perception, like soft ripples across a still pond, offering a space for reflection rather than urgency. Observers often feel a delicate mix of melancholy and wonder, a quiet understanding that even what was never lived has its own resonance, its own subtle beauty. Some storytellers suggest that the lantern responds to attention and intention, not in the sense of granting wishes, but in shaping the clarity of what is perceived. A curious or contemplative mind may find particular threads glowing more vividly, aligning with thoughts, memories, or unresolved questions that linger within the soul. The myth emphasizes that the lantern is not sentient in a conventional way, yet it possesses an uncanny attunement to the subtleties of consciousness. Its radiance is a quiet dialogue, an invitation to explore the tender spaces between action and inaction, presence and absence, reality and the might have been. The lantern is also said to illuminate lessons hidden within lost possibilities. Observers may perceive not only the choices abandoned, but the reasons they were forsaken, the gentle ripple effects those paths might have created, and the subtle balance of consequences that shaped the world as it came to be. The myth frames this illumination as a form of quiet wisdom, a way for beings to understand the intricate interconnections between choice, potential, and outcome. It does not dictate judgment or create regret. It merely reflects the delicate geometry of existence, showing that even the shadows of unrealized futures contribute to the harmony and complexity of the multiverse. According to the legend, the lantern of lost tomorrows is sometimes accompanied by faint companions, ephemeral sparks or motes of light that drift alongside its glow, These companions are subtle, almost imperceptible, yet they seem to carry fragments of stories, tiny echoes of moments that might have been experienced differently. They swirl gently around the lantern, interacting with its light in ways that enhance its reflective quality. Some storytellers suggest that these motes are fragments of consciousness, remnants of beings who glimpsed possibilities and whose awareness now flows alongside the lantern, adding depth and texture to its illumination. The myth emphasizes that the lantern is patient, existing outside the rush of time and outside the judgment of success or failure. It drifts through realities silently, offering illumination only to those who notice its glow. Its light is not meant to hurry, persuade, or admonish. Instead, it invites quiet reflection, contemplation, and a gentle acknowledgement of the infinite tapestry of potential that surrounds and permeates existence. Those who linger near its radiance often report a sense of serene clarity, a delicate awareness that even choices not taken and worlds never formed still resonate and contribute to the broader flow of life and possibility. Some stories suggest that the lantern is closely tied to dreams, especially the dreams of those sensitive to the currents of possibility. In dreams, its light may appear as a faint glow on the horizon, a distant beacon that pulls the mind gently toward reflection. Observers may sense paths that they did not take, hear whispers of conversations never held, or feel the resonance of moments lost to chance. The myth presents this not as sorrow, but as a soft illumination, a tender guide encouraging contemplation of potential without insistence. In this way, the lantern becomes a bridge between memory, imagination, and the quiet understanding of what might have been, carrying a profound, gentle wisdom. The myth also describes the lantern as a stabilizing force in the subtle architecture of possibility. Its light aligns faint threads of potential across dimensions, smoothing inconsistencies and creating soft harmonies between the futures that were lost and the present that exists. It is not interventionist. It does not rewrite events or alter outcomes. Instead, it maintains balance in the quiet spaces between realities, ensuring that unrealized possibilities continue to resonate gently without disrupting the ongoing flow of creation. In this sense, the lantern embodies the patient care of an unseen gardener, tending to the gardens of potential without ever claiming ownership. According to legend, those who truly attune themselves to the lantern may experience profound insight into the nature of choice, consequence, and the passage of time. Its light allows an understanding that what was never lived still contributes to the texture of reality, that even abandoned paths leave ripples, and that the unseen currents of possibility carry lessons, beauty, and resonance. The myth insists that these insights are subtle, never imposed, but available to those who approach with attention, patience, and openness. The lantern is a gentle companion, guiding the mind through reflections of what might have been, without forcing interpretation or demanding acknowledgement. The myth continues by describing the lantern of lost tomorrows as a repository of infinite nuance, where even the smallest flicker of possibility has its place. Each glow is unique, imbued with the delicate energy of what could have been, forming patterns that shift with the observer's perception. These patterns are never static. They are fluid, interwoven, and responsive, like the reflections of moonlight on a gently rippling pond. The lantern does not impose structure upon these threads of potential. It allows them to drift, converge, and separate naturally, preserving the infinite subtlety of unrealized futures. To witness this is to feel the quiet magnitude of choice, the soft weight of paths untraveled, and the gentle hum of endless possibility vibrating just beyond the edge of perception. Some versions of the myth suggest that the lantern carries with it a faint scent of nostalgia, though not tied to any particular world or memory. It is the scent of futures unexperienced, of whispered conversations never spoken, of unformed friendships, fleeting alliances, and tender moments that never reached their fullness. Observers may not recognize these scents consciously, but they evoke a quiet, emotional resonance, a gentle tug toward reflection. The myth emphasizes that this resonance is not sorrowful in the conventional sense. It is contemplative, soft, and luminous, offering the kind of gentle melancholy that encourages calm introspection rather than anxiety or regret. The lantern is also said to influence the flow of time in subtle, imperceptible ways. Its radiance can slow the perception of moments, allowing an observer to linger on reflections of possibility, to explore threads of what might have been without feeling rushed. This temporal subtlety is not imposed upon the universe itself, but affects the consciousness of those sensitive enough to perceive the lantern. Time in its presence becomes a quiet river of reflection, where choices and potentials swirl like gentle eddies, allowing insight, contemplation, and understanding to arise naturally. In this way, the lantern functions as both guide and companion, illuminating the hidden geometry of possibility while honoring the autonomy of all who encounter its glow. Some storytellers describe the lantern as deeply intertwined with the dreams and subconscious of sentient beings. Its light touches the soft undercurrents of thought, brushing against unacknowledged desires, dormant creativity, and the faint whispers of potential never realized. The myth suggests that even when the lantern remains unseen, its presence may guide the mind in subtle ways, inspiring insight, patience, and gentle clarity. Dreams experienced near the lantern are often tinged with the faint shimmer of alternate outcomes, offering glimpses into choices not made and moments never lived. These visions are always tender, always ephemeral, and never prescriptive, inviting reflection rather than imposing conclusion. According to legend, the lantern's presence is closely tied to empathy and understanding. Those who perceive its light often find themselves more attuned to the subtleties of choice, the delicate balance of consequence, and the fragile beauty of potential. The myth suggests that through quiet observation, one may learn that no action exists in isolation, that every untraveled path leaves a soft echo, and that the universe is woven from both the realized and unrealized, the chosen and the forsaken. In this sense, the lantern of lost tomorrows becomes a teacher, offering wisdom not through words or instruction, but through the gentle illumination of infinite possibility. The myth also tells that the lantern can appear in moments of transition, when a world, a consciousness, or even a star is poised on the brink of change. Its light shines where decisions converge and futures branch, revealing the delicate outlines of paths that could diverge. Observers may glimpse civilizations that might have endured, friendships that might have thrived, and possibilities that might have shaped the very structure of existence differently. The lantern does not force anyone to follow these glimpses. It merely presents them, a soft, radiant reflection of the infinite might-have-beens that accompany every moment of life and creation. Some storytellers speak of the lantern as part of a quiet triad alongside the river that remembers and the sleepless giant. While the river carries memory and the giant maintains vigilant awareness, the lantern illuminates the realm of unrealized futures, offering insight into the potential that exists alongside reality and memory. Its glow links with the currents of memory and the foundation of consciousness, forming a delicate harmony between what has been, what is, and what could have been. In this way, the lantern is not isolated, but interwoven into the fabric of existence, a soft, guiding presence that preserves both reflection and possibility. Legends emphasize that the lantern's light is endless, capable of encompassing an infinite number of lost tomorrows without ever dimming. Each filament of glow represents a potential story, an untraveled path, or a subtle divergence from the way things unfolded. Observers report feeling both small and expansive in its presence. Small because of the vastness of unrealized potential, and expansive because of the intimate awareness that even a single lost possibility carries resonance throughout the multiverse. The lantern teaches that nothing is ever truly lost, that every unmade choice contributes to the complexity of existence, and that attention, reflection, and gentle awareness are themselves forms of illumination. The myth concludes with the understanding that the lantern of lost tomorrows exists not to lament what was never, but to honor it. Its glow is an eternal acknowledgement of potential, a quiet testament to the paths that diverge silently in the spaces between choices. It reminds those who perceive it that every untraveled road, every decision unmade, and every world unrealized is not meaningless. They are threads woven into the infinite tapestry of existence, contributing to the resonance and subtle harmony of the multiverse. The lantern's light is a gentle meditation on possibility, encouraging reflection and appreciation for the delicate interplay of choice, consequence, and potential that shapes every reality. Storytellers often suggest that the lantern has a rhythm to its illumination, a slow, undulating pulse that mimics the subtle breathing of the cosmos itself. This rhythm is soft and unhurried, never demanding attention but always present to those who notice. Each pulse seems to correspond to the shifting tides of potential across the multiverse, highlighting futures that flicker briefly into awareness before fading once again. Observers who attune themselves to this rhythm may feel an almost musical resonance, a faint vibration that links them to the intricate web of possibility surrounding them. It is a rhythm of contemplation, a cadence of quiet understanding, and a lullaby of unfulfilled yet meaningful potential that encourages introspection and calm. Some myths describe the lantern as capable of influencing the thoughts and emotions of those nearby, not through manipulation, but through gentle illumination. Its presence can awaken insight into choices previously overlooked, reveal the subtle consequences of inaction, or illuminate the hidden beauty in paths never taken. Those sensitive to its glow may find themselves contemplating not just their own potential, but the potential inherent in the multiverse itself. The myth emphasizes that this influence is never coercive. It encourages reflection, understanding, and empathy, allowing observers to perceive the interconnectedness of all possibilities without fear or judgment. According to legend, the lantern also interacts subtly with the flow of time. It is said to exist simultaneously across multiple timelines, observing futures that were and futures that might have been, without privileging one over the other. To those attuned to its presence, the lantern's glow is like a map of the multiverse's lost opportunities, a reminder that even the smallest divergence can echo across realities. The myth presents this not as a cause for regret, but as an invitation to honor the fluidity of existence, to recognize that every moment carries within it countless potentials, each contributing to the ongoing evolution of worlds and consciousness. The lantern of lost tomorrows is also intimately connected to dreams. Some stories say it appears most vividly in the twilight between sleep and wakefulness, where minds are open to subtle currents of possibility. In dreams, it may illuminate paths never taken, moments never experienced, or relationships never formed. Dreamers may feel a gentle warmth in its glow, a quiet understanding that their untraveled roads still carry meaning. The myth suggests that these dream encounters are not prescriptive, nor do they demand action. They are invitations to reflect, to gently consider the intricate lattice of cause and effect, choice and potential that underlies existence. Some storytellers speak of the lantern as a guide for those who wander the liminal spaces between worlds. It drifts along the edges of collapsing realms, the quiet margins of forming universes, and the soft thresholds of possibility. Wherever it appears, it offers subtle illumination, revealing not the paths that are, but the paths that might have been. The myth emphasizes that the lantern is never insistent, never urgent. It does not direct travelers, but offers the gift of contemplation, a chance to perceive the infinite richness of unrealized potential without fear or pressure. Its presence encourages patience, reflection, and a gentle appreciation for the delicate balance of existence. The myth also suggests that the lantern's glow can inspire creation, even from the remnants of lost possibilities. A faint light may stir imagination, inspire new worlds, or awaken dormant ideas in those sensitive to its presence. In this way, what was never realized becomes a seed for future potential, as if the lantern's light carries the quiet wisdom that nothing is ever truly lost. It merely waits for new forms, new minds, or new worlds to bring it into expression. It embodies the principle that reflection and awareness of possibility are themselves creative acts, subtle forces that shape the unfolding tapestry of the multiverse. Legends describe the lantern as a companion to the sleepless giant and the river that remembers, completing a triad of quiet forces that underlie the cosmos. The river carries memory across the multiverse. The giant maintains vigilant awareness beneath all worlds, and the lantern illuminates the vast expanse of unrealized futures. Together, these myths suggest a harmonious framework. Memory, awareness, and potential intertwined, each reinforcing and complementing the others. The lantern, in particular, reminds observers that reflection upon unrealized possibilities is as vital as attention to what is and memory of what has been, a gentle illumination that bridges the past, present, and infinite potential. The myth closes with a vision of the lantern drifting endlessly through the quiet spaces between realities, its gentle glow touching the edges of worlds, minds, and dreams. It illuminates lost tomorrows without forcing their revelation, offering a calm and tender meditation on the nature of choice, consequence, and possibility. Its light is a lullaby of the might-have-beens, a subtle rhythm that soothes rather than alarms, and a patient reminder that the vast tapestry of existence is composed not only of what was and what is, but also of all that could have been, shimmering quietly beneath the surface of reality. The lantern of lost tomorrows teaches that even in the silence of unmade choices there is beauty, resonance, and enduring significance, inviting all who perceive it to rest, reflect, and drift gently into the quiet understanding of possibility. Tonight we drift into a story whispered in the spaces between worlds, a myth that speaks not of beginnings or grand battles, but of endings, the gentle, inevitable conclusions that close the loops of existence and allow the multiverse to breathe. This is the myth of the weavers of quiet endings, mysterious beings said to move softly along the threads of reality, guiding the close of stories, the settling of worlds, and the final notes of moments that must gently fade into memory. Unlike other primordial forces, they are not concerned with creation or potential. Their purpose is subtle, almost invisible, yet profoundly necessary. They ensure that all things arrive at their natural conclusions, and that endings are neither abrupt nor destructive, but tenderly woven into the fabric of existence. The myth describes the weavers as figures both intimate and vast, composed of threads of light, shadow, and the soft hum of time itself. They are rarely perceived directly, appearing only as fleeting glimpses of movement at the edges of perception, or as the delicate glimmer of a thread unraveling into completion. Each weaver carries a unique resonance, a quiet vibration that harmonizes with the rhythm of a world or consciousness approaching its ending. Their work is patient and meticulous, attentive to the smallest details of the life, story, or universe they are guiding. In this way, the myth emphasizes that endings, like beginnings, are crafted with care, and that even the quietest departure carries meaning, reflection, and subtle grace. According to legend, the weavers of quiet endings are intimately aware of the balance between memory, potential, and closure. They often work in concert with forces like the lantern of lost tomorrows, the river that remembers, and the sleepless giant. While the lantern illuminates the unrealized futures, and the river carries the echoes of what has been, the weavers bring closure, ensuring that stories, lives, and worlds are allowed to rest without lingering disruption. Their presence is not forceful. They guide endings as a gardener might guide the gentle fall of leaves, allowing completion to occur naturally and gracefully. Observers who sense the weavers often describe a feeling of serene finality, a calm understanding that the natural arc of existence has reached its quiet conclusion. The myth also explores the idea that the weavers operate across multiple scales of existence simultaneously. A weaver might guide the conclusion of a single life on a small world, while simultaneously attending to the slow disintegration of a vast civilization, the final moments of a dying star, or the collapse of a collapsing timeline. Their awareness is precise and patient, recognizing that every ending, no matter its scale, requires attention, intention, and delicacy. The myth suggests that without the weavers, the universe would be left with abrupt fractures, unfinished stories, and lingering dissonances that could ripple across reality, creating imbalance and subtle chaos. Their presence is a quiet assurance that all things will arrive at their natural resting place, and that endings can be gentle, and that closure is a form of care. Stories often emphasize the emotional dimension of the weaver's work. They are attuned to the resonance of loss, not in a mournful sense, but as a subtle echo that must be acknowledged and transformed. In guiding an ending, a weaver may gently absorb the residual energies of what is concluding, dispersing them into the broader currents of the multiverse, where they can be carried, remembered, or transformed. The myth suggests that this process allows worlds, lives, and events to leave the stage without leaving scars, creating a continuity of experience that honors both the end and the ongoing flow of existence. It is a work of profound empathy, a weaving of closure that balances reflection with release. According to legend, the weavers possess an almost musical understanding of rhythm. Each ending has its cadence, its tone, and its tempo, and the weavers attune themselves to this subtle pulse. A civilization's decline, a single consciousness's final breath, or a star's quiet fade into darkness are all approached with an awareness of resonance. The myth describes their movement as a dance across threads of light and shadow, each step carefully measured, each motion ensuring that endings arrive neither prematurely nor delayed. Observers who glimpse this dance often report a sense of calm, as though witnessing the natural, deliberate flow of time itself and sensing that closure, when properly tended, can be as beautiful and necessary as creation itself. The myth also suggests that the weavers are patient teachers of impermanence. By observing their work, one may come to understand that all things, thoughts, worlds, memories, and lives have their proper duration, and that the quiet acceptance of endings is part of the natural order. The weavers demonstrate that closure is not an absence, but a transformation, a delicate folding of the completed into the eternal currents of existence. Those who perceive their influence may feel a subtle sense of relief, an intuitive understanding that endings need not be feared, and that the conclusion of one thread allows others to flourish in harmony. Some versions of the myth hint that the weavers interact with dreams and imagination. They may appear in the twilight spaces between waking and sleeping, where consciousness drifts gently through reflection and memory. In these moments, the mind may sense the subtle work of the weavers, the careful alignment of threads, and the gentle release of energies no longer needed. Observers often report a profound sense of quiet, a meditative awareness of the ebb and flow of experience, and an intimate understanding that endings, though inevitable, can carry a grace that is almost imperceptibly comforting. The myth emphasizes that the weavers are not solitary but move in quiet synchrony. Their collective presence ensures that endings are attended from multiple angles, that the subtle energies of closure are harmonized, and that nothing is left unresolved. Each weaver is attuned to the others, moving in resonance to create patterns of completion that are seamless, subtle, and enduring. In this way, the myth presents the weavers as part of a delicate ecosystem of forces, a gentle web that ensures the multiverse does not collapse into disorder, but transitions smoothly through cycles of birth, existence, and quiet conclusion. The stories often describe the weaver's presence as almost imperceptible, felt more than seen. Travelers across realms, sensitive dreamers, and those attuned to the soft currents of reality may perceive a faint shimmer of movement at the edges of awareness, the gentle brush of threads aligning themselves, or the subtle warmth of a space settling into calm. The myth insists that these experiences are not frightening but profoundly soothing, evoking the quiet assurance that all things reach their proper resting place in time. The weavers are caretakers of closure, guiding what must end so that what continues may do so without obstruction, and teaching that the soft inevitability of endings is as necessary and beautiful as any beginning. The myth deepens as it describes how the weavers of quiet endings are attuned not only to the physical and temporal dimensions of existence, but also to the emotional and spiritual resonance of what is concluding. Every world, every life, every story carries with it subtle vibrations of joy, sorrow, hope, and unspoken longing. The weavers sense these currents and move in harmony with them, ensuring that the process of ending honors the essence of what has been. They are neither mourners nor celebrants. They are stewards of the delicate balance between remembrance and release. Observers often report that encountering the influence of a weaver brings a sense of profound calm, a quiet recognition that closure, when carefully tended, can be comforting, restorative, and even beautiful. According to legend, the weavers are especially attentive to endings that might otherwise leave echoes of imbalance. A civilization collapsing too abruptly, a consciousness extinguished without acknowledgement, or a star fading into the darkness without leaving traceable energy, could create subtle disruptions in the weave of reality. The weavers, in their patient vigilance, move gently to smooth these edges, guiding energies into alignment, dispersing residual currents, and ensuring that the quiet threads of closure ripple harmoniously across the multiverse. In this way, their work is both practical and profound, a hidden architecture of endings that supports the ongoing flow of creation without interfering with its freedom. Some myths suggest that the weavers are intimately connected to the lantern of lost tomorrows and the sleepless giant. While the lantern illuminates unrealized potential, and the giant observes and stabilizes the foundations of reality, the weavers ensure that the cycles of existence reach their natural conclusion. Their triadic interaction forms a subtle harmony. Potential is illuminated, existence is stabilized, and endings are tenderly guided. The myth emphasizes that this harmony is not imposed by force. It is an organic, patient orchestration, where each primordial force contributes to the delicate rhythm of the multiverse, allowing creation, memory, and conclusion to coexist in quiet equilibrium. The weaver's influence also extends to the personal and intimate threads of existence. A single consciousness, standing at the edge of change or loss, may feel their subtle guidance. The myth tells us that the weavers move with infinite patience, allowing the mind to come to understanding and acceptance on its own terms. Their presence is gentle, non-intrusive, like a soft hand guiding a leaf to float to the surface of a still pond. Those who sense this movement often describe a feeling of gentle closure, a quiet completion of inner tension, and a tender reassurance that endings, though inevitable, are neither cruel nor chaotic, but necessary and harmonious. The myth describes the weaver's method as one of subtle interlacing. Each thread of closure is carefully woven alongside others, creating patterns that are seamless and enduring. The intricate choreography of their work ensures that endings do not feel abrupt, harsh, or disruptive. Instead, they flow naturally, like a quiet current, carrying leaves down a slow river, each leaf settling gently into place. Even the most significant events, such as the collapse of a civilization or the extinction of a star, are attended to with the same delicate precision, highlighting the myth's emphasis on the beauty and necessity of mindful closure. According to legend, the weavers sometimes leave traces of their presence that can be perceived by those attuned to subtle energies. A faint shimmer in the corner of vision, a whisper of movement across a landscape, or a soft alignment of threads in a dream might reveal their activity. These traces are never intrusive. They are gentle markers, a quiet invitation to observe the natural rhythm of endings and to reflect upon the way closure shapes existence. In this way, the weavers teach through presence rather than instruction, encouraging calm awareness, introspection, and the quiet acceptance of change. Some stories suggest that the weavers can interact with memories and the remnants of lives, worlds, and civilizations that are concluding. They gather the essence of what has been, weaving it into subtle currents that can persist within the multiverse, much like the river that remembers carries echoes of events past. In this way, nothing is ever entirely lost. The weavers preserve the integrity and resonance of endings, allowing memory to persist even as the active forms fade. Their work ensures that the conclusion of any thread contributes to the ongoing beauty and harmony of the multiverse, transforming endings into quiet continuities rather than abrupt voids. The myth emphasizes that the weavers are tireless and infinite, moving across realms, worlds, and threads of existence without pause. They operate beyond the constraints of time, able to tend to endings both imminent and distant, immediate and lingering. Their patience is a defining characteristic, reflecting the broader principle that endings, like beginnings, require careful attention, respect, and harmony. Those who perceive even the faintest echo of a weaver's work often feel a deep sense of relief and serenity, sensing that closure, though subtle, is as essential to the cosmos as creation itself. The myth continues by exploring the intimate relationship the weavers of quiet endings share with the passage of time. Unlike forces that rush, accelerate, or impose direction upon the unfolding of events, The weavers move in sync with the natural rhythm of existence. They do not hurry endings, nor do they delay them unnecessarily. Each conclusion is approached with a patient understanding of its appropriate moment, a sense of timing that ensures the fade of a star, the dissolution of a realm, or the final breath of a consciousness occurs neither too soon nor too late. In this way, the weavers teach that the pace of endings is as vital as the endings themselves, and that the universe flourishes when closure is neither forced nor neglected. According to the myth, the weaver's work is not only functional, but also deeply poetic. Each thread they guide carries within it the resonance of all that came before, subtly influencing the textures and flows of life and reality around it. A fallen leaf, a cooling ember, or a quiet sigh may carry the echo of a weaver's touch, a gentle indication that closure has been attended with care. The myth suggests that endings are never arbitrary. They are the culmination of unseen, delicate processes that preserve continuity, honor memory, and allow the energies of existence to fold gracefully into the vast currents of time and space. In this way, the weavers are artisans of quiet beauty, shaping the soft contours of conclusion with infinite patience and subtlety. Some storytellers describe the weavers as particularly attuned to the cycles of life and death, both on a cosmic and personal scale. They may guide the collapse of a world with the same careful attention they give to a single thought or fleeting emotion. In doing so, they ensure that the energy released by endings is not wasted or lost, but is redistributed in a manner that supports growth, creation, and the persistence of balance throughout the multiverse. Observers who are sensitive to these forces often report a profound sense of calm and comprehension, a recognition that endings are not failures or losses, but natural, essential, and even nourishing elements of the ongoing cycle of existence. The myth also hints at the weaver's subtle interaction with consciousness and memory. They may gently draw the essence of concluded stories, experiences, and lives into a quiet weave that persists within the fabric of reality. This weaving preserves the lessons, emotions, and echoes of what has ended, allowing them to inform, inspire, and influence future events in unseen ways. In this manner, the weavers act as custodians of both closure and continuity, ensuring that endings are not erasures, but transformations, and that the energies of past experiences continue to resonate softly across the multiverse. Some versions of the myth describe the weaver's presence in dreams, particularly those that linger at the borders of perception, when consciousness drifts between wakefulness and sleep. In these spaces, the weaver's influence may manifest as a sense of peaceful resolution, a gentle unfolding of understanding, or the soft perception of narratives completing themselves naturally. Observers may see entire stories fold gently into quiet threads of light, or feel the delicate settling of unresolved emotions into the fabric of memory. The myth emphasizes that these experiences are never overwhelming. They are subtle, intimate, and calming, fostering a sense of serenity, acceptance, and quiet wisdom. The weavers are also said to move in harmony with other forces of the multiverse, particularly the sleepless giant, the river that remembers, and the lantern of lost tomorrows. While the giant provides vigilance beneath all worlds, the river carries echoes of what it has been, and the lantern illuminates unrealized potential. The weavers guide the natural closure of cycles, stories, and lives. Together, these myths form a symphony of cosmic attentiveness, where awareness, memory, potential, and closure coexist in subtle equilibrium. The weavers ensure that the quiet resolution of one thread does not disrupt the resonance of others, but rather enhances the harmony of the entire multiversal weave. According to the stories, the weaver's work is often accompanied by faint visual or sensory phenomena, perceptible only to those attuned to subtle energies. A soft shimmer across a landscape, the gentle alignment of threads at the edge of perception, or a slow, undulating glow in twilight might mark their presence. These signals are not meant to startle or alarm, but to reassure, to indicate that closure is occurring gently and naturally, and that the energies of existence are being guided with care and intention. Those who perceive these signs often describe a profound sense of calm, a quiet awe, and a tender understanding of the inevitability and beauty of endings. The myth also portrays the weavers as deeply empathetic beings. They are attuned not only to the external processes of worlds and civilizations, but also to the inner currents of thought, emotion, and consciousness. When guiding the conclusion of a life or a story, they sense the subtle currents of attachment, longing, and memory, allowing these energies to fold gently into the weave of closure. In doing so, they preserve not only the form of the ending, but the essence of experience, ensuring that nothing is lost, nothing is wasted, and that the quiet beauty of completion is fully realized. The myth concludes by portraying the weavers of quiet endings as silent, eternal guardians of closure, moving with gentle precision through the vast multiverse. They approach endings with the same careful attention, whether tending to the final breath of a single consciousness or the slow collapse of an entire world. Every thread of life, every story, every moment that reaches its natural conclusion passes through their subtle influence, ensuring that the process is neither abrupt nor chaotic. They do not interfere with the flow of existence, but their presence guarantees that the ending is both graceful and harmonious, a soft settling that honors the journey rather than erasing it. Legends often describe the weavers as almost imperceptible in form. Some imagine them as delicate filaments of light and shadow, weaving themselves through the currents of time with motions so subtle that they might only be glimpsed from the corner of the eye. Others speak of them as quiet, humming presences, felt as gentle warmth or the soft alignment of threads in consciousness, where endings are approaching. Their appearance is never alarming or intrusive. It is a reassurance, a gentle hand guiding the universe's many stories toward the closure they require. In this way, the myth frames the weavers not as ominous agents of death or cessation, but as caretakers of balance and continuity, bringing quiet understanding to the natural cycles of existence. According to storytellers, the weavers' movements are imbued with a quiet rhythm, a cadence that harmonizes with the pulse of time and the subtle energies of the multiverse. This rhythm is slow, deliberate, and tender, ensuring that every ending unfolds in resonance with the greater flow of reality. Observers attuned to this rhythm may feel a sense of peace, as though the universe itself is breathing gently, folding moments and lives into completion with infinite care. The myth emphasizes that this rhythm is essential. Endings that follow the natural cadence are neither abrupt nor disruptive, allowing the universe to maintain its intricate balance and beauty. The weavers are also described as teachers of impermanence. By observing them, one may come to understand that closure is not something to fear, but a necessary part of the cycle of existence. Every life, every story, every universe has its time to flourish, and its time to settle into quiet memory. The weavers guide this process with empathy, preserving the essence of what has been while ensuring that energies and potential are folded gently into the broader currents of reality. They teach that endings are not erasures, but transformations, a reweaving of existence that allows continuity, reflection, and new beginnings to emerge naturally from what is concluded. Some myths describe how the weavers interact with dreams, particularly those that linger between sleep and wakefulness. In these twilight spaces, the mind may sense their subtle influence, perceiving endings not as abrupt closures, but as gentle harmonizations. Dreamers might see stories folding gracefully into threads of light, civilizations completing their cycles in soft, shimmering patterns, or fleeting lives leaving behind resonant echoes that blend seamlessly with the currents of memory and potential. These encounters are tender and reflective, offering insight without demand, teaching that the process of ending can be as serene and beautiful as the process of beginning. According to legend, the weaver's work ensures that nothing truly disappears. The energy of lives, worlds, and stories that reach their conclusion is preserved, transformed, and reintegrated into the broader multiverse. Their weaving carries the essence of endings into a quiet resonance, where memories, experiences, and lessons continue to influence the flow of existence without imposing disruption. In this way, the myth presents the weavers not only as agents of closure, but as custodians of the continuity of life, story, and reality itself, honoring both the finality and the enduring resonance of endings. The weavers are often depicted as moving in synchrony with one another, forming subtle patterns that span dimensions, timelines, and consciousness. Their collective movements ensure that no ending occurs in isolation, that each thread is attended with care, and that the closure of one story harmonizes with the rest of the multiverse. Their presence is a quiet symphony. Each gesture, each alignment, a note in the melody of endings, weaving a tapestry that is both intricate and profoundly soothing. Observers attuned to this symphony may feel a deep sense of calm and understanding, a recognition that endings, like beginnings, are part of a delicate, eternal harmony. Legends tell that the weavers are tireless, moving endlessly through the vast expanse of existence, ensuring that all threads of life, consciousness, and reality are brought to their gentle conclusions. They are patient beyond measure, capable of tending both immediate endings and those that unfold over incomprehensible spans of time. Their work is infinite, unhurried, and meticulous, embodying the principle that closure, when approached with care, is as vital to the multiverse as creation itself. In witnessing or sensing the weavers, one comes to understand that endings are not to be feared but embraced, that they carry their own subtle beauty, and that they are essential to the ongoing rhythm of existence. The myth closes with the image of the weavers moving silently through the threads of all worlds, guiding, aligning, and folding endings into the great tapestry of the multiverse. Their presence is a quiet promise that stories will not be left incomplete, that moments will find their natural rest, and that all things will arrive gently at their conclusion. Observers are reminded that the cycle of beginning, experience, and ending is continuous, infinite, and interconnected, and that endings, like beginnings, can carry a profound serenity when attended with patience and care. And so, as the weavers move quietly through the unseen corners of existence, we too can rest in the gentle knowledge that every story, every life, and every moment reaches its place, softly and harmoniously, within the vast web of reality. Their myth invites calm reflection, quiet awareness, and the comforting understanding that endings are not loss, but transformation. As we drift to sleep tonight, we can imagine their threads weaving softly through the cosmos, guiding all things toward rest. Good night.